Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
Playoffs, the rankings, whatever you want to call it, the right rankings or the wrong rankings, somebody's going to be excited. Somebody's going to be upset tonight. It's Tuesday, Diesel, which means it's time for the college football playoff rankings to be revealed. It's time to pull back the curtain, as you say, to the room of people who are supposedly in the know, dressed up in their nice suits, drinking wine.
Look like you were exposing yourself.
Well, it could be. Eating their caviar in their nice hotel rooms, who are allegedly, college football experts.
They have caviar in Texas?
I don't know. I'm sure they do. Everything's bigger in Texas. They probably have big caviar. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. We're going to get right into it. College football playoff rankings being revealed tonight. Who do you think will be on the outside looking in? Obviously, tonight's rankings are not the final rankings. Again, these aren't the final ones. However, we are getting very close to the final rankings being released. One day closer, one step closer. Diesel, you and I are going to give our best guess of who will be in tonight. Also, Tolos, I want to hear from you. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Phone lines are also open as well. 844-326-3663. Diesel, somebody, some team, some fan base somewhere tonight is going to be upset, but we have to find out who that fan base is going to be.
Oh, they're going to get big mad, but guess what? They can stay mad. It doesn't matter. These are just preliminary, okay? Don't worry about it. There's still time to move and shift and put people where you want them to be. Look, these committee members, they are squirrely folks. You can't get a beat on them. You can't figure out what it is they value because they won't tell you, right? I mean,
they don't know.
There's a whole show that comes on TV after hours where they try to guess and figure out based on the rankings that they provided, what it is that the committee values. And even then, they don't know. They're just guessing. They're just throwing it into the wind. And, man, that would be the biggest, I think, positive revamp that the College Football Playoff Committee could make is actually telling us what it is they value.
Sure.
And why they ranked the teams where they ranked the teams.
You know, it's funny. Kelly Ford and I talked about that last week. We spent, I bet, 5 minutes on that very discussion. I don't know if anyone in the college football world, Diesel, maybe the high-ups, have ever been privy to those conversations in terms of what their motives are, what they use, what they look at. But I do agree with you in the sense of, boy, would it make a lot more sense if you and I in the world knew what they used. However, you know what the problem with that is? If they exposed what they used to determine the rankings, then we would have more and more ammunition to tell them why they're wrong. If they don't tell us, we can never debate them. But if they tell us, then that's when they're in trouble.
So you're saying they're cowards?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what it is.
Yes.
You got multi-million-dollar cowards up there who won't defend their own decisions. They just stick it out there, walk away, and watch the world burn.
That's what they do. God. That's what they do indeed. So the rankings that will be released tonight, I believe 7 p.m. is when those rankings are, when that show begins. Right now, Oregon sits at 1. These are last week's rankings. Ohio State was 2. Texas was 3. Penn State was 4. Indiana was 5. BYU was 6. Tennessee was 7. Notre Dame was 8. Miami was 9. Bama was 10, and then the 11 and 12 was Ole Miss at 11 and Georgia at 12. Diesel, Boise State was on the outside looking in. So let's get right into it. Tell us where we are wrong and where we are right, Tolos, on the text line. Also on the stream, hop in the comments section. Good to see DB already there. We're live on Twitter. Tolo DB. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So, Diesel, last week's top 10, I just read off. Do you want to start at the top or at the bottom of the list and work our way? Which direction do you want to work?
Let's go from 1 to 10.
Okay.
And recall, we did this 2 weeks ago. We did it 1 week, and it was a lot of fun. And then I was gone for a week on vacation, so we didn't get to follow it up. So this is the second time we're doing this. We are going to, Cole, predict where we think the committee will rank the top 10.
That's right.
And then we're going to see which one of us is most accurate to what the committee predicted. So what we're going to do is there's going to be points assigned for this. You get 3 points for hitting a spot dead on.
Mm-hmm.
So if, for example, I think we all think that, you think that Oregon is going to stay at the number 1 spot where they were last week. And if you're right, you get 3 points.
Yeah.
If you're off by 1 spot, you get 2 points. If you're off by 2 spots, you get 1 point. And if you're 3 spots or more away, you lose a point. We got to penalize one of us for getting it very, very wrong.
I like that.
And I remember I beat you badly.
It wasn't close.
2 weeks ago.
It was not close.
So,
but now that the rankings are out,
yeah,
I think it's easier to kind of predict, right?
We didn't have a lot of shakeup in 1 through 5. So I think that's going to be fairly easy, though I do see a shakeup here, Cole. And this is a controversy. I'm going controversy right out of the gate. I think the college football playoff committee's number 1 team this week will be Ohio State.
Ooh, really?
Who lost by what, a point? What did a point to Oregon?
It
was like a 3-point game, 1-point game, something like that. It was a very, very close game between those two. And Oregon did not look good this week against a mediocre Wisconsin team. So Ohio State's loss was to the number 1 team in the country in Oregon.
It was a 1-point loss.
It was 1-point loss. Oregon is undefeated, but they just barely beat a 5-win Wisconsin team. So for that reason, I think the playoff committee will have Ohio State jump Oregon.
No way.
I don't think that they can only look at the head-to-head. You got to look at total body of work. I mean, if that's the case, why do we even need to play a full season of games if we could just put these teams head-to-head and rank them how they do against each other?
If they would have lost, I'd be with you. However, I can't agree with you on Ohio State being 1 tonight. I think Ohio State is 2 tonight. Oregon 1, right? And at the end of the day, was it pretty? No, it was a 3-point win, to your point, Diesel. But I do think the committee looks at it as, look, you know what? You could have lost that game. You could have lost that game, and that game could have gone in a different direction. It didn't. The better team won. It was not something that a lot of people expected. I don't think you and I expected it to be that close, right, between Oregon and Wisconsin. However, because they won, I'm keeping Oregon at 1. So I have the Ducks at 1, and I have Ohio State 2. You are just flip-flopped, right? Ohio State 2.
Yeah, we are. So I've got Ohio State 1. And this is what my prediction for what the college football playoff committee will do. And I only say that again because the playoff committee will screw with the rankings a little bit just to create some controversy. So I've got the prediction is Ohio State 1, Oregon 2, Texas 3. You have a move for that? Wow, you did have a move for that.
Come on, look at what don't keep going though.
I got Penn State at 4.
What's their magic?
Nittany Lions.
I don't have a Lion.
You don't have a Lion.
I don't have a Lion. I don't think. No Lion. Sorry.
Indiana 5. So
what's a Hoosier sound like?
What even is a Hoosier? Is a Hoosier a person from Indiana?
Who's your daddy? I don't know. I have no idea.
I've got the top 5. You've got the top 5 completely unchanged. I've got the top 5 teams the same. The only flip-flop is 1 and 2 with Ohio State 1, Oregon 2.
JD on the YouTube stream says Texas will be 3. We both agree with you there. JD, we think Texas will be 3. Diesel, you said it a minute ago, we don't have a ton of difference in our top 5, only Oregon, Ohio State. However, when you look at 6 through 10, we do. Obviously, tonight's are not the final rankings. If you're not really keeping up, we want to make sure you know whatever happens tonight, they still have, 2 more weeks of the regular season plus conference championships, and then we'll have our grand finale. Oh, boy, I can't wait.
We actually have the same number 6 team as well. We both have Notre Dame at number 6.
And I don't have an Irish sound effect.
Here is where you have somebody chugging a beer. That's racist, but that's true. Here's where it gets a little squirrely. Here's where it gets a little weird. Okay, I've got Alabama at number 7. I think the committee will jump Alabama from 10 to 7.
That's a big jump there.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. We had a lot of top 10, top 15 teams go down this past week. So I've got Alabama making the jump from 10 to 7.
That's a big jump.
I've got Ole Miss making the jump from 11 to 8. I've got Georgia making the jump from 12 to 9. And I've got Miami, who didn't play this past week, but lost 2 weeks ago, falling from 9 to 10.
Ooh. I'm telling you what, I have a little bit of a difference there, Diesel. So I like your Notre Dame at 6.
JD says leprechaun of Lyman sound effect. We don't have it on cue, but hilly-hoo!
I can get that. I'll work on it, JD.
Yeah.
Because that is a good one. I have Notre Dame at 6 as well. You have Bama at 7. I don't have them making a jump this week. I have Miami at 7. I think the Hurricanes are still looked at as a respected team inside the top 10. Diesel, I struggled here. 1 through 6, I'm confident. Okay, I'm very confident in 1 through 6. But when you get to 7 through 12, that's where I'm not so confident. I know Miami tonight will be inside the top 12. I don't know where they'll be when it comes to 7 through 12. I am predicting that Miami's 7 tonight when it's all said and done after tonight's rankings are released. You just said 10 on yours, right?
You're going to have them jump 2 spots after not playing at all?
I am. I think so because BYU, obviously, them losing, that hurts. Here's where I differ from you. I still have BYU in the top 10.
Really?
Now, this is a gamble on my part, okay? I'll be quite frank. It's a gamble. It's a wild card. I went back and forth. I was 50-50 on BYU. Part of me said, hey, they're going to fall out. Part of me said, hey, they're going to stay in. I think that's the biggest question right now in terms of tonight, what happens tonight, because in your rankings, you do not have BYU.
No.
But if you had the top 12 instead of top 10, would you have BYU inside the top 12?
Yeah, I'd probably have them fall into 11.
11 or 12. Okay. So
BYU lost to a bad sub-500 Kansas. I mean, you can't tell me that team deserves to stay inside the top 10 when you lose to a bad Kansas.
And they were they were 6th. You know what? I'm with you. I don't know. I have them at 8, but I don't know that I like that. I really don't. Maybe I'm thinking more like 10 now that I think about it. I don't like 8. That's where I originally had them. I'm going to move Georgia to 8 and Bama to 9 and put BYU at 10 because I just do not like – you're right. BYU, we all thought at the beginning of the season that might be, a Kansas team that might be dangerous. However, they have not proven to be dangerous.
See, Georgia was at 12 last week. I've got them jumping to 9. You've got them jumping to 8. Both of us think they're gonna jump back up.
Yeah.
They absolutely worked Tennessee.
No, they did
in the second half of that game. It was touchy, very touchy in the first quarter of that game. Georgia blanked in the first quarter and then absolutely turned it on. From the second quarter on and just absolutely imposed their will against Tennessee.
So I liked what you said. I did have BYU falling to 10. You said you have them somewhere around 11. I think though, when you look at the totality of what happens tonight, how the committee views BYU, and we'll get to some comments on the stream in a second. But Diesel, how the committee views this team, I think is the most compelling thing for me tonight because we all talked about it. I said it last week when you were gone. Teams like Clemson, teams like Tennessee, teams like Ole Miss, they need BYU to be out of there, right? They need them to peace out and get up on out of there and bye because they're in the way of some of those teams. Now, with them losing to a bad Kansas team that you mentioned, they're going to fall. But if they were to fall out of the top 12, then you want to talk about a stacked SEC top 12. I think that's when you'd see it, unless somehow, some way, as we mentioned yesterday, Colorado were to jump in there. I think the most compelling thing tonight is what happens to BYU.
Well, the best thing for BYU is that they are now in the Big 12, and that losing that game has them now tied with Colorado at 6-1 in the conference. There's still a very high likelihood that they're going to make it to the conference championship game. In which case, if they are one of the 4 highest ranked or one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions, which they will be, they're going to get that first round bye.
Probably right.
So, it's BYU can drop a game and not be hurt so badly. Now, they certainly can't drop another one, and they certainly need to look good over the next 2 weeks. And then again in the Big 12 championship game.
JD on the YouTube stream says BYU will fall hard based on how Miami and Georgia fell. JB says Tolo. I do think
Miami was at 3 and then fell to 9. Is that correct?
Yeah.
They were at 3 2 weeks ago before they lost, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, man. So that's a 6-point drop after taking a loss.
And they lost to Georgia Tech, right? Miami did. So you're talking about losing to an ACC program versus losing you said 6? Was that six spot loss?
6 spots.
And BYU was 5. So, oh boy. I mean, the
BYU
reality
was 6.
Oh, BYU was 6. I'm sorry. BYU, the reality is, Diesel, they could very well be on the outside tonight. They could be. I have them at 10. You have them somewhere around 11. I just don't know how they – here's what you have to look at. How do they view BYU compared to Tennessee and Ole Miss? Because I believe Tennessee, with the loss to Georgia, they're going to be interesting tonight. Obviously, they're not going to be inside the top 12 in my mind. I don't know. They could be. But how does the committee view Tennessee versus how the committee views BYU, and also Ole Miss, who was 11, looked pretty good since, Diesel. I'm telling you, man, this is going to be fascinating. I just think they're, you know what, like with great power comes great responsibility. I think this committee, they have their hands full tonight, man. And Indiana, what happens next week when they lose to Ohio State? We're having the same conversation next week as we are right now. Granted, there's a big difference in the conversation. Indiana will have lost to a really good Ohio State team, Diesel, while BYU lost to a bad Kansas team. So we don't expect that fall for Indiana to be as big, but they're gonna fall, right? They're not gonna leave them at 5.
And then again, if you look at this through the prism of a 2-loss SEC team, what do you do with Texas A&M, who's now 8-2?
Yeah,
absolutely blasted a bad football team last week, 38-3 win over New Mexico State. They were at 15. Where are they going to jump to in this thing?
Oof.
I mean, if I had to go top 12, Cole, I'm probably putting BYU at 12, Tennessee at BYU at 11, Tennessee at 12, or vice versa.
Tennessee's the one, though.
Then I've got 5. I'm doing the thing that I said I hated and didn't want to have happen. I've got 5 SEC teams inside my top 12.
It's going to happen.
5.
Yeah, it's going to happen. And guess what? If somebody else loses, don't be surprised to be
expand the playoff to 32.
That's right.
Give the other conferences a chance, would you?
So Tennessee,
then all the SEC's getting in.
Yeah, really.
Even Vanderbilt.
Well. Diesel.
God, could you imagine Vandy in the playoff?
No. Tennessee last week, Diesel was 7. They lost to Georgia. We talked about BYU. Where does Tennessee, from when you're going to go from the 7th spot, you lost to one of the best teams in the country in Georgia, who was ranked below you. They were ranked 12th. So it was a 12 beating a 7. So Georgia, you would think, would jump dramatically up. I have them, let's see. We both have them at 8. Okay.
I've got them at 9.
Perfect. 8 and 9. So we think they're going to jump up 8 and 9. But Tennessee, that loss to Georgia, do they fall out completely? If they do, who takes that spot?
And it's God, it's hard to say if you're the number 7 team in the country and you lose to Georgia that you should fall that many spots.
Maybe you shouldn't.
But then you got Tennessee falling, which at least on my rankings, Cole would push Miami outside of the top 10. And they're a 1-loss team.
Yeah.
This is a hard discussion for the committee to do this weekend. That blows me away. By the way, we have a texter who says, it's Andrew, who says Indiana plus 13.5. Andrew, you got to wait till tomorrow.
That's right.
At 4:00. Upset picks open tomorrow at 4:00.
Fred S. says BYU doesn't affect Clemson or the SEC runners-up at all. Their only path to the playoffs is winning the Big 12. Again, that comes from Fred S.
Do you think the Big 12 at this point is a one-bid league, right?
It's gotta be.
I mean, you got – it really depends on what happens with Colorado, because Colorado's an 8-2 football team, 6-1 right now in the conference.
God, that and Colorado, man, that's the wild card. That's what makes things really interesting. Texter from the 419 says you really have to be top 11 since the highest non-Power 4 team gets a spot regardless of how they rank at the end.
As of right now, that'd be Boise.
Yeah, and you and I both predicted it at the beginning of the season.
Boise State, number 13 as of last week's poll. Oh, man, I think I have Boise State staying right where they are.
Hey,
staying there at 13.
I asked this question last week, Diesel, and I want to bring it to your attention real quick. I know we got to run.
And they smacked San Jose State, by the way.
Here's a wild card for you. What if the committee, when it was all said and done, viewed Boise State, who was a conference champion, right, as better than the ACC champion? Maybe the ACC champion. Here's a wild card. The ACC champion maybe loses another game between now and then. Maybe it's a 2-loss ACC champion.
What if
What if Boise State was 4?
What if
and got a bye?
What if Miami loses another one? Clemson's in the ACC championship game and then beats SMU.
2 losses. They'd be a 2-loss team.
2-loss conference champion.
Would they rank Boise at 4 and Clemson not get a bye?
Eye test tells you that Boise State's a better team than Clemson right now. Wow. I mean,
that's a fun one.
This was supposed to make it easier, right? That the expanded playoff was supposed to make this discussion easier. Now you're just adding in more variables.
Boise State at 4. How about that for a while? But though,
Clemson at 5. Because if you're the committee and you have to give Clemson a 1 through 5 seed because they're a conference champion, like, how do you look at this Clemson team and their deficiencies that they've shown all season long?
That's what I'm saying.
And say that you deserve to be in there ranked higher than Boise State.
That would be nuts.
Who barely lost to Oregon.
That's true.
God, man, such a tough conversation. Who's going to be closer to the top 10? We'll get back into that tomorrow, of course. When we come back, the Carolina Panthers take on the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday, Cole. Probably going to be a beatdown. But the question is, what does success against Kansas City look like for the Carolina Panthers? We'll talk about that next here on 97.7 FM, 97.1 in Spartanburg and everywhere you are on the free Audacy app. Right now, Madcraft is in a bit of a conundrum, Cole.
Ooh.
Because we know that Madcraft is a die-hard Miami Hurricanes fan.
He is.
And he would, of course, love the opportunity, living right here in the upstate of South Carolina, to have Cam Ward just up the road so he can go see his boy play whenever he wants to. I understand that Madcraft is a Chargers fan, and his team's all the way on the side of the country. He didn't get to go see that team very often, but your boy from college could be on a team right here in the area. But also that would mean that Cam Ward would be a Carolina Panther. And reports have surfaced today. Cole, Bleacher Report, The Athletic, a couple different sites have it, that the Carolina Panthers could be eyeing Cam Ward. Well, breaking news. Every team that needs a quarterback is eyeing Cam Ward. Why would you not? He is incredible.
He's a good quarterback.
He's incredible in college. So, I mean, is it news? No, because every team is eyeing Cam Ward. You could literally take any quarterback's name and plug it into that title. Carolina Panthers could be eyeing Carson Beck. Well, okay, that would make a lot of sense. Carolina Panthers could be eyeing this quarter. Okay, makes sense, right? So I wouldn't put a ton of stock in those reports, but hey.
But
Madcraft, your boy might be here.
Not to get off on a tangent here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's in this hand, Cam Ward. Here in this hand, for those watching on the stream, great. For those not, I'm sorry. Here's Bryce Young.
Well,
which do you rather have here?
Where it does make sense, Cole, is if you've got Cam Ward number one, it would appear, coming from the college ranks, that you've got a difference maker coming into your program, into your franchise. And
he's good.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
That's certainly something you want in the NFL. Also, you've got a guy that runs a not dissimilar style of offense or style of play from what Dave Canales has had in the past. Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young should be a more mobile quarterback than he is. He's just little, and you don't want to put him out there getting blasted by linebackers, right? But still, you're not overhauling your system and changing what it is you do.
And you're not spending a lot of money either.
Right. You're not spending a lot of money by bringing in Cam Ward. I mean, hey, what about how would a quarterback room of Cam Ward, Bryce Young grab you?
And again,
pretty good, right?
The last thing I'll say on this before we move on is that this conversation, Diesel, comes back to the conversation that every GM has around February, around March. Do you go best player available or do you go biggest need? Cam Ward, do you look at him as the best player available? Do you look at him as the biggest need? That's the debate. That's the conversation that every front office has prior to the draft, which is fascinating because Cam Ward's really good. Mm-hmm. We could spend another segment on that, and I'm sure we will, but tell you what, man, it's interesting.
Here's the problem for the Carolina Panthers and Cam Ward. As of right now, still a lot of football to be played, but as of right now, Carolina has the 8th best odds to get the number 1 overall pick. So they are
some more.
Yeah, so ahead of them would be Jacksonville, Tennessee, Cleveland, New York Giants, Las Vegas, New England, and New York Jets.
And you just named about 7 teams that need a quarterback.
Yeah, Jacksonville doesn't. I mean, they're still not ready to move on from Trevor.
No, you can't yet.
Tennessee needs a quarterback. Cleveland needs a quarterback because you can't stick with Jameis forever. New York Giants need a quarterback. The Raiders need a quarterback. The Patriots are fine. The Jets may want to draft a quarterback in the future. So potentially you got 5 teams ahead of you that need quarterbacks. 4 of them, absolutely. 5, maybe.
Dang it, Carolina, you've won too many games this year. What are you doing?
Stop screwing around and winning football games, Carolina. Damn.
You've messed this thing up. Thanks, Andy Dalton, for winning 1 game.
And good news is, though, Cole, the Carolina Panthers face the Chiefs this weekend.
They're going to win, though, right?
Who are number 1, have a great referee crew in their back pocket. Number 2, are very, very good. So there's a good chance the Chiefs are going to help the Carolina Panthers out this weekend and put them up maybe just a little bit closer to that number 1 overall pick.
So you're not going to call for the upset. That's not what you're going to do today?
No.
Are you not? Come on.
No.
You never know.
6.5, 7-point spreads are usually like big spreads in the NFL.
They are in the NFL, sure.
The Chiefs right now are favored by 11.
That's a big one.
I guarantee you that is going to get bet up from there. I guarantee you this thing finishes somewhere more like 12.
It's probably, I'm looking now, but it's probably that 11. Diesel is probably one of the highest spreads this weekend. Last weekend, the highest was 13.5. And Detroit covered that with no problem against Jacksonville.
Well, here's one thing that I think will keep maybe that number from growing too much more. It's not gonna pass that 13.5 mark. Is that the Kansas City Chiefs are not blowing teams out this year? They're just not.
They're not.
They're not.
And by the way, it is the highest spread this week.
And even when you look at bad teams that the Kansas City Chiefs have played this year, the point differential is not good. Mm-hmm. They average beating teams under 500, which they've played and beaten 4 teams below 500. The Bengals, Saints, Raiders, and Bucks. They average beating them by 6.75 points.
Yeah.
So they're not playing. Kansas City is playing up to good competition, and they are playing down to bad competition this year.
I talked about it last week, Diesel. And in fact, I was talking to Lonzo about it last week one day. Kansas City hasn't, even with the wins, they have not been playing their best football.
No.
And that's worrisome when you look at the overall body of work and what the end goal is, because you just saw Buffalo. I'm not going to use the word destroy because they didn't destroy Kansas City, but Buffalo dominated the game. Buffalo was the better team from the very beginning to the very end. There was no bones made about it, Diesel. So to your point, Kansas City is still a really good football team. They still have the best quarterback on planet Earth right now in Patrick Mahomes. But are they unbeatable? You just saw last week. The answer to that's no. But turning that conversation one more angle and asking if the Panthers can pull it, it's a tall task.
Put it this way. The biggest win, point spread wise, point differential wise, that the Bucs have had all season was a 10-point win on the road at San Francisco, who were a sub 500 team at the time, and I think now are sitting at 5-5 on the season. I think is where they are right now. That was a 10-point win. That's the biggest win they've had outside of against a good team all season long. Yeah, they beat the Saints by 13 points, but the Saints suck, and I don't even know if they had Derek Carr in that game. That might have been Spencer Rattler starting that week for the Saints. So the question is, Cole, and if you're Dave Canales, you've got to start looking for silver linings in games down the stretch where you know you're not getting into playoff contention. You know that you know that you're playing a tough schedule down the stretch. What is a good performance against the Kansas City Chiefs actually look like for Carolina? I mean, is it beating the spread? Is it keeping it within 2 touchdowns? Because they got a tough road ahead, the Carolina Panthers.
Diesel. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, they got the Chiefs, a good Buccaneers, a good Eagles, an atrocious Cowboys. That's a win for the Panthers. Cardinals, Bucks, and Falcons again. You got a rough stretch of games down the stretch. So, I mean, maybe they win 2 more at most, and then you're talking about a 5-win team. Holy moly. Are we talking about a Carolina Panthers team that's in danger of coming close to tripling their win total from last year?
Well, your question is what would success against Kansas City look like? I'll answer that question by saying the answer needs to be losing. No, I'm serious.
Losing is success.
Losing. Here's the problem. What do you gain by winning 2 or 3 more games this year?
It's a win the battle versus win the war scenario.
And that's the whole problem. Yeah, you can say you beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, you can say you've won 3 straight. That's never happened, Bryce. Hey, up until 2 weeks ago, Bryce had never won 2 straight. Yeah. The problem is, though, to answer your question, success is losing. You don't want to keep winning. I know that might absolutely sound ridiculous, but why do you risk missing out on a Cam Ward?
This is a winning is losing and losing is winning scenario. You're right.
It is.
I mean, look, the Carolina Panthers, if you want to try to keep Bryce Young around, keep continuing to develop him. If you are trying to get Bryce some draft capital built up for Bryce Young, if what your hope is to be able to move on, wash your hands of Bryce Young, look, guys, we tried. It just doesn't work. Bryce Young's not a fit here, et cetera, et cetera. If you can get him some quality tape, then you might be able to sell him off as and package him in a trade or something and get up there and get maybe a better draft pick for him or get some capital out of Bryce Young.
Regardless, though, of what your plan and future is for Bryce Young, even if you want to keep him, Diesel, even if you want to keep him and want to develop and you believe, that's fine. He may work out. But even if that's the plan, you've still got to lose games. Because if you pick 9, 10, 11 compared to 2, 3, 4, that's a big difference.
And now you're stuck with Bryce Young. See, if you're 6, 7, 8 or better, you can go after a difference-making quarterback if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
If you're below that, you got no choice. You're not getting a difference-making quarterback after that.
You've got to lose. You've got to lose. Texter says the Panthers should be full bore, Major League the movie, all XFL player, lose them all. Well, I mean, you don't try to, but like you have to. What is Diesel? I don't know. I'm looking right now to see.
This is when you put your 2s and your 3s out there and get them game reps and get them game film, and you get to evaluate, and you really get to look back at this through this depth chart, comb through it and say, oh, well, that second string DB or that third string DB that we didn't really have a whole lot of high hopes for, turns out it is an okay player for us.
So here's the issue. The latest mock draft done by CBS Sports has Cam Ward going round 1, pick 3 to the Cleveland Browns. This mock draft has the Carolina Panthers at 8, which is what I'm saying. Like, this is where you're going to be if you stay where you're at and win 1 more or 2 more games. It has them taking Abdul Carter out of Penn State, kind of like a Micah Parsons comp in terms of a freakish athlete, edge rusher who was linebacker, got moved to the defensive to the edge rusher position, Diesel. But again, does Abdul Carter, does Mason Graham at defensive line out of Michigan, do any of those guys change the future and trajectory immediately? No. But if your plan is a crock pot plan where you're willing to wait 3 to 6 years, that's fine. But if you want to go microwave or air fryer, you've got to lose. You've got to get the highest draft pick possible.
Yeah. Look, they need help in so many positions that theoretically here, Cole, you could draft just about anywhere and probably get a really good player. I mean, do we really think LeBron Ray is going to be a difference maker for years to come for the Carolina Panthers? No. How about Ashawn Robinson? Probably not. Jadeveon Clowney, old AF. The answer is no there also. So look, you're going to need elite edge rushers. You're going to need elite offensive linemen. You're going to need elite wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks and all these positions. So you're right. It really kind of depends on, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago with Mark Schlereth. How are you trying to build this team? Are you building it from the inside out or from the outside in? And the question is, are you willing to give up this round, today's game-changing quarterback prospect, in order to keep building and doing what you're doing with Bryce Young, man, and putting a good offensive line out there, and good wide receiving core before, because who knows what the draft class is going to look like next year? Maybe there won't ever be another Cam Ward. Maybe Cam Ward goes on to be Patrick Mahomes 2.0. And wouldn't it suck if you look at it and say, man, we could have had that guy?
Yeah, and I think with the price, if you get an opportunity, you have to take them. I just don't know if they'll have the opportunity. Texter says, have you guys noticed the difference maker quarterbacks that have come out of the NFL the last 20 years have gone second round or later? You don't need a first round. And Texter, to your point, there are good quarterbacks that come later in the draft. However, finding those quarterbacks and hitting on those quarterbacks, that's the challenge of a GM. It's easy to take a Cam Ward because you know how good he is, you know what he did in college, and it's not really that big of a gamble. You're not having, if he doesn't work out, it's kind of the same situation with Bryce Young. It's not that big of a risk. However, if you're banking on a second or third round guy to be your franchise quarterback or a fourth round quarterback like Dak Prescott, that's a big risk. And I don't think GMs are willing to take that.
Yeah, it's a gamble where you think you got a good one and you don't really know, obviously, until you get out there and play a handful of games versus hoping that you got it right. Yeah. And maybe you'll get lucky that you got it right down the stretch.
Diesel. Speaking of getting it right down the stretch, College Game Day has a chance to get it right down the stretch. We'll get into that next. What if those two words, they create a level of buzz, a level of possibility, Diesel, and we ask the question, what if? I asked this question on Twitter, on X over the weekend, and I want to bring it to the table today. You can see it at the Cole Bryson on X. Diesel is at Diesel on Radio. That's how you can find us on Twitter. A fun question is what I put on X over the weekend. We were having this conversation, Diesel, with some media members in the press box in South Carolina. Assuming Clemson's 9-2, beating the Citadel, assuming South Carolina's 8-3, beating Wofford, would there be a possibility of Clemson getting College Game Day in Week 14, South Carolina at Clemson, College Game Day, or would they automatically choose Texas A&M, even though they've already Diesel been to both schools once this season? Already been to Texas, already been to Austin, rather, already been to College Station. They won't choose Michigan, Ohio State because Michigan sucks. They have 5 wins. They might have 6. I don't know who they play this weekend, but they'll probably have 6 wins. Ohio State and Michigan's off the table.
Yeah.
But should they go back to College Station for the second time?
They were in College Station for the Notre Dame game.
The very
right?
first week. Yeah, it was the first or second week of the season.
I mean,
that's right.
Look at the potential storylines there. We're going to bookend our season in College Station.
Mm-hmm.
You got the highest 2 ranked teams in a rivalry game, in a conference for the first time, by the way, for the first time in the SEC, I should say. Look, there's plenty of reasons and plenty of storylines as to why you go to Texas A&M over South Carolina Clemson. However, God, you've got possibly one of the biggest stars in college football, easily one of the top 10 biggest stars in Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, Dylan Stewart.
I think you want to be there for that. It's if they hadn't been to A&M already this year, it's clear cut. They're going to A&M,
and they probably end up with listen, SEC. What do they say, Diesel?
What if they got weird and just went to an FCS school? They've done that in the past. They've done that in the past and said, you know what? We're going to take all this out. Yeah. We're going to subvert your expectations, and we're going to go to Delaware State.
So if you asked the question, Diesel, about visiting the same location twice in one season, College Game Day has already been in College Station. When's the last time they've been twice in the same season? 2022, so not very long ago. College Game Day was in Knoxville twice. So it wasn't very long ago that College Game Day. Yep, exactly. Look, they've said before, it doesn't matter. If we've been there once, we'll go again. As much as I'd love for it to be Clemson, I think the loss to Louisville and South Carolina's loss to LSU, I think that's what's the deciding factor, Diesel, because
now you're assuming that chalk happens. What if something insane happens and Indiana beats Ohio State? Would they go to Purdue, Indiana? I know the matchup's not good, but it's like, how many opportunities have you ever had
to go to Indiana?
Probably
not many.
Yeah, you're probably not ever going to get that opportunity ever again.
Indiana's won over the past 3 years before this season. They've got 10 wins or 11 now, whatever it is. The last 3 years, they had 9 total combined.
Yeah.
3 wins, 3 wins, 3 wins.
If you want to look at a team that's earned it, right? You could go to that game. You could go to Purdue. I know it's not a good football game, but if you want to go to a school that's earned it, that's where you go.
I do think it's interesting, Diesel, because when you use the term "what if," I just want you to just think about this for a second. Imagine if Clemson would have beat Louisville. Imagine if South Carolina would have beat LSU. Do you realize that next Saturday's game, the winner would be in the playoff and the loser would be out? South Carolina Clemson would be for a freaking playoff spot. How insane would that be? And then that leaves Game Day no choice. They definitely be there because Carolina would be a 2-loss team. Clemson would be a 1-loss team. And you're talking about 2 teams probably inside the top 12, Diesel. Yeah. It'd be a top 12 matchup. I know, obviously, ifs and buts were candies and nuts, but I still think it's a good matchup. And I'll tell you what, man.
Why not Oklahoma State, Colorado? Why not go?
Where's that game at?
That game is at Colorado. The game is at Colorado. They were last there in 2023. could this be the last season we see Dion as a head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes?
He says no, but again, does that mean anything?
That doesn't mean anything.
Just like Saban, right? Saying I am not going to the NFL.
Truthfully speaking, Cole, I mean, I know they need a lot of help, and we'll get a better picture of where this is after this week. But I do believe Clemson and South Carolina will probably jump up to the, maybe at best, maybe 16, 17, 18 range for both of them. And then you are potentially talking about a playoff potential on the line. I mean, you're talking about Clemson having playoff implications if they were to beat South Carolina, because then they would have a top 16, 17 win. And there are playoff implications on the line. And, I mean, if South Carolina were to win that game, are you really telling me that 4 straight wins against top 25 teams is not good enough to get you right there in the very thick of that number 12 conversation?
JD says no chance because they're going to Texas A&M because it's rivalry renewed. And I get that. And you're probably right. I hate to say it, but JD, you're probably – they'll probably end up in College Station.
Yep. When we come back, Cole, we talk to a big-time guest, Audacy insider Brian Baldinger. He covers the NFL. He has a fantastic show, fantastic podcast, Baldy Breakdowns. That's coming up next right here on the Fan Upstate. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on a beautiful rainy day here in upstate of South Carolina. Going to the phone lines right now, joined by Audacy NFL insider Brian Baldinger, host of the Best of Football Show podcast. Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo Game Day, be delicious. Brian, first time we've ever had you on the show. We appreciate your time joining us today. I don't know how much time you spend breaking down mediocre to bad football players, but if you're Dave Canales and we are here in Carolina Panthers territory, what do you really want to do with Bryce Young going forward? Yeah, he's won 2 straight games. He hasn't impressed really ever as a Carolina Panther. Do you want to move on from him, get what you can get, or try to plan to park a former number 1 draft pick as your backup QB?
I don't know what you could get for Bryce at this stage, honestly. I don't know how far that stock from the number 1 pick and what the Bears got for it. I don't think you're going to get much. If you're Dave Canales, you're trying to win every single game possible. You're just trying to build some kind of a winning culture. Doesn't matter when it starts. It could be the second half of the season. They've run the ball very well most of the season. Chuba Hubbard has been excellent. Robert Hunt's been excellent. They found themselves a nice little center in the middle there. Has been playing pretty good. Like, Jatavian, you just look at some of these guys and you just keep trying to develop. You develop the culture, you develop winning. If it's with Bryce, great. And if it's with Bryce to trade Bryce, great. But you're trying to win every single game and trying to maximize whatever it is that he's good at right now, and trying to see if he can actually fit into the future. I mean, it's not a great sample of what he's done so far, but they have to decide. It's a big decision. Is this the guy that we're going to stay with, or do we have to move on?
Brian, I love your response. I love your answer because it contradicts what I said in the very last segment. Listen, you played the game. You know it. I didn't. I don't anywhere close remotely to you. But I said the Carolina Panthers, every game they win, it actually hurts them because their draft, where they're going to pick next season, next 2025, next April rather, is just going to continue to fall and fall. Winning does nothing in terms of getting the best player overall. However, to your point, you make the argument of building a winning culture as a GM, though, for Dan Morgan's standpoint. How do you balance that?
You don't. There is no balance. You win. I mean, what you're saying, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But Bryce Young was the number 1 pick. Whoopie-doo. Like, what'd that get you?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, Bo Nix was the last quarterback taken in the first round this year. Look what that kid is doing. It's about player development. And so you can find great players in every round. If I'm Carolina, honestly, the culture is way more important than a high draft pick. It just is.
Gotcha.
I don't know if there's Joe Burrow out there. I really don't. I mean, I haven't studied really the college, quarterbacks or anything else coming out at this point, just into the NFL. But my gut feeling is there's no Joe Burrow out there. And so with that said, look, Jadeveon Clowney was the first player taken in this draft out of South Carolina. I love Jadeveon. He's never had 10 sacks in his life in a season. Been a good player. He's the first pick of the draft. I mean, I could go find 10 other players in that first round that were far better decisions or players over that course of time than Jadeveon. So picking high doesn't guarantee you anything. We've seen Zach Wilson, all these other guys just bomb out and fail. So it's about player development. It's about culture. It's about putting a winning feeling and forgetting about the first half of the season, trying to turn it around the way the Saints are right now, the way some of these other teams are coming on.
Find him on Twitter at Baldy NFL, known for his Baldy breakdowns. What's it like inside of a locker room, specifically asking here about the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a good football team? They're only a 1-loss football team on this season, but they've had a tendency, I think, this year to play up to better competition and play down to lower competition. What's it like inside of a locker room, and what kind of a feeling does it create when you're not out there essentially handling serve against the bad teams, even if you're winning?
Well, I mean, look, this team has won 3 Super Bowls. The core of the team has won 3. I mean, to me, just the fact that they can go out to Buffalo in that atmosphere and play as well as they did, knowing that whether they win or lose, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, it's all about what they do in January and February to that team. And so you're just going to have some days where you're just going to be a little bit off. You're just not going to be as good as you need to be. But that quarterback and that coach and that defensive coordinator, Like, all they think about is winning. Everything, every day. So the mindset doesn't change. They were pissed when they lost to Buffalo. That was not a fun ride home for them. Even at 9-1, it wasn't a good ride home. So they'll refocus them, get them back. But they got the best culture in the NFL. They got the best coach and the best quarterback. Losing the game is only going to make them just more focused on the next opponent.
Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. Joined by Brian Baldinger. What do you do in Big D, Brian? Obviously, they're in a tough situation after last night, and that game really not competitive from the very beginning on a play that got called back. Jerry Jones, the past 3 seasons, not used to this. Usually their disappointment comes in the postseason. You know, there are a lot of Cowboy fans everywhere, including right here in our listening audience in the upstate. It seems as if this franchise that was just winning back-to-back 12-win seasons is going in a tailspin, and you saw that firsthand last night.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was critical of the Cowboys, and I like Jerry Jones, and I like Mike. I like the head coach. I mean, I like a lot of the guys in that team, that organization. I played there. But I said, back when the Eagles were loading up in free agency with Saquon and Zach Bond, they were bringing all kinds of guys in. I was like, what are the Cowboys doing? They signed a long snapper, and a backup linebacker. They didn't participate because they thought the roster was good enough, and it's clearly not good enough. And so that's the message. I mean, there's no coach that could coach that team. Maybe Bill Parcells might be able to squeeze a few more wins out because he was just magical even when he went to Dallas. But I don't know many guys that could go down there and make that roster work for you right now. It needs a lot of work. They got some young linemen that have to develop. I don't know what they're going to do with the quarterback at this point. He's got to get, he needs a contract. They got to sign Micah Parsons. But other than that, they have to upgrade this roster. They have to get with understanding the salary cap and how you kind of play with the funny numbers to make sure you can get guys all in the way the Eagles do, the 49ers do, the good teams in this league do. They got to figure some things out. And last time was a good wake-up call for everybody in that organization that the roster is not good enough right now, regardless of who the coach is.
Brian Baldinger joining us here on the Fan Upstate. He is an analyst for NFL Network, Fox Sports, Compass Media Networks. He's an Audacy NFL insider and Sky Sports UK analyst. How is breaking down the game for the UK audience different than breaking it down for the American audience who's more familiar with the game?
You'll love this, and it's why it's so fun. When America, we take the games live in London. I do the playoff games for them. I've done a couple Super Bowls for them. When the Americans broadcast, Fox, CBS, whatever, goes to commercial, we come to the studio. They don't break for commercials. So we get to analyze all game long in real time. So if Joe Mixon runs up the middle for a 45-yard touchdown on the 6th play of the game, and we go to commercial in the UK, we're breaking that run down. And we're showing, just what the blocking scheme was and, what Drew Scruggs did on the left guard position to get Joe Mixon free. So it's awesome doing stuff for Sky.
It sounds like it. It absolutely sounds like it. Going off of a little bit of a follow-up on the Baldy breakdowns, which I love. Everybody loves them. In your mind, since you started, which Baldy breakdown has really went the most viral, maybe that you didn't expect to go viral, rather? Which one blew up on you in your recent memory?
I would say, Snoop Dogg just hit me up today. Now, not everybody gets followed by Snoop Dogg. He's got 84 million followers. So, he's a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I just did something, at this. I announced the game on Sunday for national radio. So I did something outside the stadium with those Steeler fans and terrible towels coming in, and he loved it. But I did one last year on the 49ers' last play in overtime where they really kind of screwed up the protection, and they could have had a chance to win the game. And I showed how Brandon Ayuk was wide open. If they didn't screw up the protection, they'd probably win that Super Bowl. I think that one was somewhere around 5 or 6 million, views on that particular play. That was probably the biggest one I've had.
Who are your nominations, Baldy, for your unsung heroes this season? Guys that maybe are just emerging as stars in the NFL. Maybe some guys that don't really get their name called on plays very often, who are really, really impressing you through your Baldy breakdowns.
They got a second-year middle linebacker for the Chargers. They're the number one defense in football. They've given up the fewest points so far. But Deion Henley out of Washington State, I think he was a third-round pick, didn't play much last year. That kid leads that team in tackles by like over 40 more tackles than the second player. Like Deion Henley is an unbelievable player. He never comes off the field. He's an unbelievable player that probably people don't know about. He wears number 0. He's really something else. If you look at this kid that's starting at left tackle for the Colts, they just won a big game against the Jets on Sunday. Matt Gonsalves from Pitt. He's a Long Island kid. He went into New York the other day. He pitched a no-hitter against Will McDonald and Quinnen Williams. He played really good. He's only his second NFL start, but he looked like he'd been out there a long time. Gosh, I could go around the league and just keep going and going and going, with certain players that just they just catch your DJ. Like this kid, Zach Bond in Philadelphia. He never played off the ball inside linebacker in New Orleans for 4 years that he had in 4 years combined in New Orleans. But they saw something inside of him that said he could be an off the ball inside linebacker. And what's not surprising is he went to Wisconsin. And every single Wisconsin linebacker that plays in the NFL, Leo Chenal, TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, Andrew Van Ginkel, you go through the list of all these guys, TJ Edwards, they're all great players.
Baldy, you mentioned the Chargers just a second ago. To follow up on that, do you credit where they are now more to what they've been building in the last few years or just simply the Harbaugh effect?
No, it's simply the Harbaugh effect.
Wow.
They have a lot of the same players. Like that defense was awful to watch. Between the missed tackles and the miscommunication and the breakdowns in the secondary, week in, week out, it was abysmal. They have a foundation. They have a toughness to this team. They start 2 rookie 5th-round cornerbacks. You'd never know it. Like they're just well coached. They're disciplined. The quarterback is playing out of his mind. They're going to the postseason, and they're going to be a tough out in the postseason. And it's all Jim Harbaugh. This weekend, of course, is the Harbaugh Bowl. So you'll be able to see it on national TV, just like we did, years ago when it was Baltimore, San Francisco in the Super Bowl.
Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add some extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. Baldy, I want to ask you about 2 quarterbacks who are in similar situations, but also very different in some other respects. Who's more cooked in their individual situation, Trevor Lawrence or Aaron Rodgers?
Well, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he just is played like a 40-year-old quarterback. He's bouncing balls off the turf. He's missing receivers that are open that he's never missed before. He's in too big of a hurry to get rid of the ball. He doesn't want to get hit again. I mean, it's just time. Trevor Lawrence, I think there's still a lot of hope. He's still very young. He's got a lot of experience. He's not playing well, but they're not a well-coached team. There's going to be changes there in Jacksonville. You see some of these guys. I mean, I'm not going to compare him to Justin Herbert, but look at what Justin Herbert's doing this year, and look at him what he did in the past. He was just a big, talented kid before, and now he's literally jumping out of his shell. And so I feel like there's hope for Trevor Lawrence if they can put a line together, they get the right staff in there, the right offense. I feel like Trevor is a very serious student of the game, wants to be good, works to be good. It's just not working for him right now with this regime.
Baldy, before we let you run, last question for you. Do you think, in your opinion, is there any concern on the NFL's part with the streaming of what's coming up next month in terms of the numbers? Because we saw Friday night that Netflix obviously had some issues with the numbers they had on the Paul Tyson fight. Any, in your mind, any worry in the sense of Roger Goodell and what's to come on Netflix?
I'm not sure. I've read a few things about Saturday night's fight, so I'm not really sure what to make of it. I know this. Netflix paid the NFL $150 million to broadcast those 2 games on Christmas. They couldn't really turn it down. I don't know if there's going to be issues or not at this point. It's kind of beyond maybe Elon Musk can go figure it out if they need somebody to go fix it. I don't know. He seems to be able to fix a lot of things. But I'm just going to enjoy football on Christmas for the first time in a long time.
Baldy, great stuff as always, man. We really appreciate you hopping on with us, and we enjoyed it, and we'll do it again soon.
Let's do it, guys. You bet. Anytime. Take care.
You too, man. Brian Baldinger, fantastic stuff there. Want to remind you that NFL insider Brian Baldinger, host of the Best Football Show podcast, Insider Calls brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo game day be delicious. These are really good stuff, especially on the Bryce Young front with Dave Canales. That was really the first question you asked him, and I just loved. Yeah, it did, and that's why I kind of wanted to not go at him a little bit, but like challenge him, because I do respect what he says. He played the game. I didn't, and you and I, a segment or an hour ago, were just having the conversation of what to do, and Brian absolutely says you've got to win now, regardless. Yeah. Don't worry about – and I know other analysts out there may agree or disagree, but I thought that was really, really fascinating.
Well, if you combine that with something Mark Schlereth told us, which was build the team from the inside out, you know that if you're the Carolina Panthers and you got 3 wins right now, you pick up maybe 1 or 2 more down the stretch, you're not going to be in contention for a number 1 overall quarterback.
No.
You're not going to be in contention for a top 5 pick, but you definitely will be in contention to get great offensive linemen, to get great defensive linemen, and that's how you build a team from the inside out. And look, we can look back at teams that perennially suck and spent decades sucking, i.e. the Cleveland Browns, who tried and tried and tried again and again and again and again with the number 1 overall picks of going out and fixing it the fast way with a quarterback. And even if you have a good quarterback, you got nothing around him, he's going to flame out in a couple of years anyway. So it seems that, building a culture is gigantic in the NFL. Dave Canales is a super positive guy, and it's really hard to build a culture when you're constantly churning players because you maybe sat some guys because you didn't want to get them hurt or you wanted to get film on somebody else. And it creates this culture of we're trying to suck.
It does. I'll tell you what, regardless of the philosophy, going back to what Mark Schlereth said, you do have to stockpile draft picks, whether those be early in the draft or later. To Brian Baldinger's point, I understand how valuable Diesel a winning culture is because, and I know we hear this a lot, but especially in the NFL, Diesel winning's hard. It is hard to win games in the NFL. It just is. If you ask those who have coached and those who have played, man, it's hard to win NFL football games, and he touched on it. They need the culture in Charlotte. They need the winning recipe, the winning formula, the DNA. He also talked about that same DNA when you asked him the Chiefs question, right? They don't care really what happens in the regular season as much as they do in January. That DNA takes time. That's the DNA they're trying to build. But I love his answer when I asked him about how do you weigh it. He said, you don't weigh it. You don't try to get a higher draft pick because he brought up guys – including Bo Nix, that haven't panned out, that were taken early in the draft. And I think that just goes to show how tough of a job Dan Morgan has. I really do, man. It's tough.
Yeah. I mean, digging out of a big hole. I mean, you're digging out of a hole with a thimble is basically where the Carolina Panthers are right now.
And that thing breaks. It breaks
a
lot.
It's a leaky thimble.
It does. It really is. But really appreciate Brian Baldinger. Great stuff. Give him a follow on Twitter at BaldyNFL. If you missed it, you can go back on the free Audacy app, AUDACY. Use the rewind feature and catch that interview anytime in the chapters portion of the app. Search the Fan Upstate. That's how you can have it anytime, anywhere. We'll also replay it for you in the 6 o'clock hour. But Diesel, it's time to sharpen your pencil in the very next segment. It doesn't matter what I do because I suck at this challenge. I absolutely am terrible.
Come on.
But we're going to do it anyways.
You can't tank for a number 1 overall pick here.
I'm taking. That's exactly what I'm doing. We're going to try to find the best games this week, do a little study session, early leans for the Upset Picks Challenge. That's next. It is time to do a little study session. Find our early leans in the Upset Picks Challenge. All right, there's our early leans. Next segment coming up. We're going to get into – I'm done, Diesel. I'm checked out. I'm at, what, 70th? 70th?
I think, you're in 70th place.
Come on, man. This is buns, as they say.
In the NFL draft, there's always Mr. Irrelevant, who is in last place in the NFL draft. Who is in last place right now?
Please don't say me.
No, it's not you. You're far from last place.
Yeah, but it's separated by 2 points?
10.5 points away from last place.
That's not good.
But we've got a three-way tie for dead last between Bonefish Girl, who's new to the challenge, by the way, Keith in TR, and Alan. Okay. You all have half a point right now.
Well,
dead last.
Could be worse, I guess.
You could have 0 points like Dan B.
Could not even be on the board.
Yeah.
So, Tolos, what games are you looking at for the Upset Picks Challenge, which starts tomorrow at 4 p.m.? And by the way, Diesel and I tomorrow will be on location at Ingles in the big city of Easley tomorrow. Yeah. So if you want to come out and see us, you can do so. Give you the exact address. It's 410 Pelser Highway in Easley. That's where we'll be tomorrow until 6:30 because Furman basketball begins then. But what games are you looking at? Which ones do you like? What are you leaning to? Tolo 71307 is the way you can text in. Just make sure you start your text with the word fan. Diesel, do you have any that you're giving a side eye to on this Tuesday?
I am. I'm giving a good hard look right now at a 7-3 UConn, who are 10.5 point dogs at 7-3 Syracuse.
Ooh,
I like this game because Kyle McCord there at UConn has turned this team around, has changed some things. They're in Stewars, is that right? Stewars, Connecticut.
That's right.
Where this game, where this team is. Look, Syracuse is an up and down team. They have not won back-to-back games in. Let's see if they've done it all season. They have. They've won 3 in a row against Holy Cross, UNLV, and NC State.
Pretty impressive wins there, pal.
After that, starting with NC State, they've gone win, loss, win, loss, win. So they're due for a loss, right? They're due for a loss against UConn. Look, this is
so it's that easy this week? I mean, that's literally the pick.
That's kind of.
So everybody needs to take that game.
Jump in on that one. That's got some value there. It's worth 10.5 points. But UConn has won 3 in a row. They beat UAB, Georgia State, and Rice.
Ooh.
They played another ACC team, Wake Forest, to a 3-point loss a month ago. So, look, I think this UConn team is a fairly good football team. Look, they're not out there blowing anybody out by 3 touchdowns, but they're winning comfortably by 7 points most weeks.
You know, I do like that game. I really do. I'm not going to pick the same game as you because I have a philosophy. And I just came up with this philosophy. Like
either we both win or we both lose.
That's right. We can't choose the same game. We have not chosen the same game this season, by the way.
Is that so?
No, I have not done it. I have not chosen the same game you have. I did think about taking NC State over Georgia Tech. You mentioned NC State a minute ago. That game's Thursday night on ESPN. Georgia Tech's kind of fickle, if you will. NC State's 5-5. Georgia Tech 6-4. I don't know. Here's why I look at that game. I don't know that the spread should be 9 in favor of Georgia Tech, Diesel. I know Georgia Tech had a big win over Miami, but aren't they kind of due for a letdown? Aren't they due to really just crap their pants, if you will? I did look at that game. I also looked at Purdue, Michigan State, because I have to pick Purdue at least 3 times because you said your words were Purdue's going to win a game they're not supposed to at some point.
You know what? That's an interesting strategy because I have picked Arizona State, I think 3 times this year. And Arizona State has won, I believe, 2 out of those 3.
Have they really?
Eventually you're going to get it right. If you keep picking the same team every week,
or they
eventually you're going to get it right.
God.
Now there's a couple. Look, if you're sitting pretty and you're trying to protect the lead, there's a couple of games in the Sun Belt that are very intriguing. Georgia Southern +2.5 against Coastal Carolina. Again, it's not worth a ton of points.
No, it's not.
But I would feel good picking that one. I would feel good picking Marshall over Old Dominion. Again, worth only 2 points. That is on the road at Old Dominion. So, I mean, look.
I think a very popular pick this week will be Indiana over Ohio State. I really do.
I believe so.
Indiana Diesel is a 13.5-point dog. 13.5. I don't know, like, we're going to find out if Indiana's battle tested or not. Ohio State may just blow them off the map. I don't think they will, but they could. Indiana, they're 10-0, 7-0 in the Big Ten. I think this could be a popular pick. I just don't know. I picked Ohio State to win the national championship at the very beginning of the season. I don't know if this Ohio State team is suspect to losing the game they're not supposed to, even if it would be against a good Indiana team.
Cole, one more that I would look at here, and I won't pick this one because it's too close to me, but App State +7 at home against James Madison. JMU's good this year, but App State has won 2 straight home games. So they're fighting for, number one, they're fighting for a winning season.
Yeah.
Number 2, they're fighting for bowl eligibility, and it certainly makes things more difficult for App State considering they're down a game because they didn't play Liberty after Hurricane Helene.
Yeah.
But and they're also playing for Coach Sean Clark's job. I think if he gets to 6 wins this year, his job is probably secure at least for another 12 months.
Texter says, actually, this comes from CJ in Greer. He chimes in on the conversation. What do you think about Army +14.5 over Notre Dame? CJ, I just don't think Notre Dame's going to have another hiccup. They had their hiccup over NIU or with NIU earlier in the season. I just don't think it happens again. Army's a good team.
Yeah.
I don't see it happen.
And Army's not 2 weeks in a row. Army has not put up a ton of points.
Yeah.
They scored 14 in a win on the road at North Texas. They scored 20 in a win at home against Air Force. Yeah, you go back a couple of weeks prior to that, 45, 44, and 49 points respectively. But something's going on there. The defense is still playing stellar football, but I don't think this offense can score enough to stay with Notre Dame, even if the defense acquits themselves well, holds Notre Dame to, if you want to say 14 points below their season average, you're still talking about a 21-point team minimum for Notre Dame, maybe 28 points. And this offense at Army, I don't think they can score against this Notre Dame, who also, by the way, has a very good defense.
Texter says, what about Wake and Miami? I'm liking Wake. Texter says, Kyle McCord is on Syracuse. What did we say, Texter? I'm not sure. Texter says, I'll take 20 points for knowing it's Jim Mora Jr. who coaches UConn, and it was his birthday today, I do believe. Texter from the 449 says, Charleston Southern over Florida State, book it. Pack Fan Shuff says the Pack is a great pick. The Wolfpack? You like the Wolfpack? Oh, you're talking me into it? Tom.
I can't trust that team.
I know. That's hard. They're 5-5. Tom texts in Diesel at 71307 and says, struggling between UMass +42.5 at Georgia and Kentucky +20.5 at Texas.
This is a play the scrubs game.
Oh, boy. Texter, let's see. Oh, Michael in Simpsonville says, Cole, the Ohio State boat races Indiana. Oh, wait. Apparently all Big Ten games have to be played at noon. Jeez, says Michael in Simpsonville. Oh, come on. I don't want to hear it.
Wesley
Clemson,
Roberts,
South Carolina's at noon, too.
Wesley on the stream says, lock of the week, Wofford over South Carolina.
There's not even a spread on that game, is there?
No. If you had to set a spread for that game, what would you set it at?
49.
That's disrespectful.
I was going to say 56.
No.
Yeah.
No way. No way. If you had to set a spread for that sounds right at like 32.5.
No.
And I still think South Carolina covers.
No, it's got to be in the 40s.
Do you think Lenora Sellers and Cade Klubnik even play this weekend?
They'll play. I don't think they'll play long.
Do you think they'll play into the second quarter?
Yes, I would be surprised if Lenore's plays after halftime. I think you'll see Lenore's first half, Robbie Ashford's second half. Robbie Ashford's going to play a lot on Saturday. Christopher Vazina is going to play a lot on Saturday. I don't anticipate Diesel, either quarterback, staying in very long. Let's check out our daily Dewey. Dewey wants to chime in 844-326-3663. See if Dewey has anything worthwhile today. What's up, Dewey?
Yes, I got two things.
Okay.
First of all, I'm leaning towards the Citadel over Clemson.
What's the spread? What's the spread, Dewey?
They're not going to play no one. It's 42. They'll probably be the other way around, but
okay. What's your
second thing?
But Dabo's not playing no one. Dabo would be stupid to play anyone. And secondly, it's a travesty that the Carolina-Clemson game's at noon.
Oh, we actually agree with you.
That's the smartest thing you've ever said, Dewey.
It is a travesty, and whoever said that schedule should be fired.
How do you spell travesty, Dewey?
I don't know.
Thank you, Dewey.
Dewey's the best, man.
Hey, look.
Dewey, instant classic.
Cole, this might be the pillow fight of the week here.
Okay.
We got 3-7 Charlotte, who just fired Biff Poggi.
Yes, they did.
And Florida Atlantic at 2-8. Charlotte are 3.5 point spreads, or 3.5 point favorites in this game. Would you bet FAU gets it done at home against a team with an interim head coach?
No. I mean,
I don't trust anyone in this game.
Does somebody have to win that game? Is that what you're telling me? I don't trust either team. And also, Diesel, before we do get off a subject, I want to bring this to the table. This was announced about 25 minutes ago. We got an email. Breaking news as of about 25 minutes ago. The University of South Carolina quarterback Lenora Sellers has been named college football's National Player of the Week. The Maxwell Football Club announced today.
I am just glad that he is National Player of the Week and not co-National Player of the Week, because that mess pisses me off. So many of these big weekly awards, now we're giving out co-awards, which sucks. Stop with it. Pick one.
So you don't want me to have a co-high school player of the week coming up in about 2 hours?
No, I don't.
We're not going to. We're not going to. Don't worry.
You and I are each other's co-hosts.
It's true.
That's the only co that I like. Well, besides David Allen co.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Always fun.
How about East Carolina, who were on kind of a heater after they fired Mike Houston? They're 3-point dogs on the road at North Texas, who are a 5-5 football team. We get to this point of the year. Yeah, we get to this point of the year, who, by the way, have lost 4 straight.
Wow.
And East Carolina has won 3 straight. Okay. You fire your head coach and you rattle off 56, 49, and 38-point performances over the past 3 weeks if you're East Carolina. Look, I understand that it's not worth a ton of points, but you may look at that one just to keep creeping up the leaderboard just a little bit.
Hey, real quick, no interest in 2:30 Saturday Diesel JMU, a 7-point road favorite at App State.
Well, I mentioned that one.
You did?
Yeah.
You like it?
It's my own team, man. Yeah, I can't take the emotion out of it. I mean, I'm already kind of moving on to basketball.
JMU's good.
That's the first time I've ever said that. That's the first time I've ever said that as an App State fan. Is it basketball season yet?
It's not good.
No, it's not.
Not good at all.
No.
Minnesota, last one. Minnesota does the unthinkable for Clemson, for Ole Miss, for Tennessee, and takes down Penn State.
Ooh.
Knocks them out. Penn State's favored by 12.5.
What's Minnesota on
Minnesota is 6-4, 4-3 in the Big Ten.
Not a bad team.
Not terrible.
Not a bad football
Conference
team.
is kind of right?
I mean, look, I know you're not high on Penn State. I know you look at them as
I don't
frauds.
know what you're talking about.
You look at them as frauds. I mean, how many times you've used the F word, not just that F word, but others as well, to talk about Penn State. Is it possible that Minnesota shocks the world?
That'd be a good game to look at, man.
Minnesota's got a consistent defense. Not so much last week when they gave up 26 points to Rutgers, but defensively, you go back from there. They gave up 17 points to Illinois in a win, 23 points to Maryland in a win, 17 and 17 to UCLA and USC.
And can you also, Diesel, explain something to me real quick? I've got the opposite. Not the underdog of the week, but a lock of the week.
Really?
Lock it in, maglock, whatever you want to do. Colorado -2 against Kansas.
Lock it.
What is up with that spread?
That's ridiculous.
What?
Is Travis Hunter out? Is Shadur not playing?
-2, Diesel.
Is Dion flirting with another job? What's going on?
That's crazy.
At what point are the odds makers going to buy into this Colorado football team? When we come back, Cole, let's take our look around the sports world with our Daily Wires. That's coming up next. So much happening in the sports world, Cole, that it's impossible for you and I to cover every single little thing on this show because we also know where the meat is for our local audience. But that doesn't mean that we're not paying attention to everything else happening out there. We call these our daily wires. This is the buzz happening in the sports world. Last night on Monday Night Football, the Texans defeated the Cow. Is defeated the right word for this?
No, it's not.
Or is it beat down? Is it embarrassed? Is it
travesty?
Mollywopped?
Yeah.
The Cowboys 34-10. Dallas is now 3-7 on the season. How bad does the record have to get for Jerry Jones to apologize to the two radio show hosts who were asking, let's be real, fair questions of an owner and GM, by the way, whose job it is to put a winning product on the field?
Yeah, this is what I was thinking while I was watching the game.
This game blows.
And then when I see Jerry Jones die or leave, I'll be thinking,
I sure am glad you leaving.
That's what I'll be thinking. I mean, really, I hate to be that way, but it's a joke. It is a total joke. It's bad, Diesel, when I take the Texans and the points. I told you yesterday. We talked about it. Yeah. 7 points. Sign me up. I signed up. That hit by a mile. That was a lock of the week. But it's just it's a total embarrassment. It's and the sad part is, I'll tell you what I hate. McCarthy's going to get fired. And it really doesn't have anything to do with Mike McCarthy. It's bigger than him.
Well, nothing will change because Jerry Jones is still there and Dak Prescott is still there.
And I hate that for him because he's a good coach. But he's going to get canned because they're going to have to place the blame on someone.
Speaking of canned, Charlotte has fired head coach Biff Poggi, the no sleeve wearing, very ornery guy who has gotten into it with AAC media members. He has gotten into it with Charlotte fans. He has gotten into it on Twitter with coaches of other in-state schools. Biff Poggi out on his ass after 1 3/4 seasons.
He's got a good name though.
Biff, I'm good with Biff, but Poggi is awful.
It's unique. It's
really
weird.
He was just in his second season with the 49ers. He was 3-7 on the season, 6-16 overall.
Not good.
Not good. We had an announcement of a head coach being fired yesterday. It was the FAU coach, right? It was I'll blank on his name. He was at Houston, and then
Tom Herman.
Tom Herman. There you go. Notre Dame and Texas have announced a home series for 2028 and 2029. In 28, they will face off in South Bend. In 2029, they will face off in Austin. So congratulations, Notre Dame. That's a good get on your schedule. Of course, you're going to play your traditional powers, your Wake Forests of the world. So you got to balance those out somehow.
Yeah.
The Paul Tyson fight set a non-Vegas record for the gate revenue made, $18.1 million, Cole. Over 72,000 fans attended in person. I want to do the math here. Will an iPhone calculator even go to 18 million?
If you updated it, it will.
18
million. Have you updated it?
Yeah, I'm on iOS 18 and I hate it. I hate it. 18 million divided by 72,000.
19.
250. That means the average ticket price was only $250. That's not that bad.
No, it's not. Not
to be
for
honest.
That. No, I'm with you.
So somebody was getting like $10 tickets way up in the rafters, but somebody was also paying like $5 to $10 grand for floor seats, field level. I wonder, Cole, are we going to see more? I don't even know what the word is for this. Mixed reality boxing cards in the future, like
influencer.
Yeah, like look, we're all pretty sure that Mike Tyson didn't lose that fight because he's 58. He lost that fight because it was set up for him to lose. He was told to lose. It was in his contract to lose. So with boxing struggling the way that it is, look, you could have that those two undercard fights on any event, and they could be the main event. No one would care. No one would care on a grand national level. But you put something silly on there, and we've seen how many times have we seen MMA fighters fighting old washed up boxers and old washed up boxers fighting old MMA fighters. Like we're getting into this realm of silly season.
Anything that produces a dollar.
Ratings.
That's right.
Right. So are we going to be mixing in more of the entertainment side
100%.
of boxing into real legitimate boxing to get people to actually pay attention to boxing?
Yes, absolutely.
The Carolina Hurricanes have fallen to second place in the Metropolitan Division with 26 points to the Capitals' 27 points. The difference is the Capitals' overtime loss where they earned 1 point. The Jets season has claimed another casualty.
Ooh.
Owner Woody Johnson fired general manager Joe Douglas. Big thing going on there
You're fired. Everybody's fired.
Everybody's fired except for Aaron Rodgers. When will they finally say
next year?
Maybe it's our stars' fault.
He will not be back next year.
Really?
No, I'm telling you, there's
hanging
no
it
way.
up.
He's done.
Hanging it up.
They won't let him back. They
There
won't
you
let
go.
him back. I'm telling you, I bet anything right now they won't let him
Hey, they bring in a good quarterback. They've got some good pieces there if they can keep them around with a rookie quarterback. Those are your daily wires.
All right, I have 11 coaches, Diesel. Not 1, not 2, but 11 coaches we have to do a welfare check on. Are they home? Have they been fired? If they're still home, how hot's their seat? That's next. Diesel, it's time to sound the siren. Find out who's home.
Every time you play that, somebody texts in, you just scared the crap out of me.
Look behind you. Look over your shoulder. You're not getting pulled. Hey,
if
by
you
the
can't
way,
tell that's a fake siren, you're an idiot.
Well, let me tell you this.
You're a slow coach.
There's a good chance people might think it's real this week, not to get off on a tangent here, but I don't know if they're doing one of those operations. The past 2 days, I-85, last night when I left here, I counted 9 cops. Today on the way here, it was over 12. Every
pulling over?
Yeah, and just sitting. Every 4 miles.
Hey,
bam, bam, bam.
Best thing for me, Cole, is I drive a slow Jeep, and I can't really go more than 10 over the speed limit.
Well, you know me.
My Jeep is
I sometimes
screaming at 85 miles an hour.
Well, that's what I need. I need something that doesn't allow me to go fast.
I have a slower car.
I do need something.
To yank out 1 or 2 of those gerbils.
Just top it off at about 70, 72, and don't let it get any higher. But it's time to do a welfare check on those who are maybe on a little bit of a hot seat. Maybe even some coaches whose seats not quite as hot as it was earlier in the season. Yeah. That's why we do this every week. And we're going to start in Gainesville, Florida, Diesel, with Billy Napier. At the beginning of the season, do you know that you and I both had Billy Napier at an 8 of 10?
I believe it. I believe it.
But where is he now?
They're 5-5 with a win over ranked LSU, with a win over a bad Kentucky, a bad UCF, a bad Mississippi State, and Samford.
Okay.
So really, you're telling me that one win against LSU is saving Billy Napier's job?
Pretty much.
One win. Because let's be real, they got spanked by Texas at Texas. They got spanked in the cocktail party against Georgia. They played Tennessee relatively close on the road. They got spanked by A&M, 13-point game, and they got absolutely demolished by Miami to start the season.
Yeah.
Are Florida fans that easy? Come on.
I don't know if they have a choice.
Raise the skirt, why don't you?
They don't have a choice, I don't believe. I'm going 4 of 10. 4.
I think any Florida coach is always at a 4.
Oh, that's fair.
I think even Spurrier was at a 4, even when things were going great in Gainesville.
I just don't think. I mean, he's done enough. They're bringing him back.
No,
there's not a lot of heat right now.
He's at a 6.
Oh
still.
Boy,
he's at a 6 because it can turn at any time, right? Like it can change at any time. They got Ole Miss this weekend coming to Gainesville. Yep. If Ole Miss beats them by 24, like a rented mule, he's going to be right back on that hot seat. He's going to be right there back at a 7. So I'm going to say he's at a 6.
But what if? What
if he got back-to-back wins against ranked teams?
Extend them. Put them in the playoff.
That might be the best thing for college football, honestly.
Wouldn't it be
Ole Miss taking a loss, which would allow another non-SEC team into the playoff.
Madcraft says, but Florida beat LSU. I'm telling you, it's interesting.
Are you telling me that 11-point win against a ranked top 25 team is enough to wipe away all of that? No.
Evidently
not with
so.
that fan base. Not with the fan base. Now, good thing is fans don't get to make these decisions.
Not normally. Not normally. All right, Diesel. Next, we're going to go north of Gainesville to a little small town called Clemson, South Carolina, where we bring to the table one Dabo Swinney. How hot, Diesel, is the seat of Dabo Swinney on the 19th of November?
Where is it with Graham Neff? 1. Where is it with the fan base? 2.
Okay.
Where should it be? 5.
And you know what?
It's a cop-out answer.
Well, no, we actually had the same conversation last time we did this, because where it is versus where it should be is 2 totally different conversations. It's 2 totally different conversations. And I'm with you. I have it at like a 1 out of 10. But it should be a lot more. It should be higher. However, they're complacent. Dabo did the unthinkable. Dabo will never do wrong in their eyes. And I'll say it's a 1 of 10, but should be more like a 3 of 10.
Texter brings up a good point to go back to the Billy Napier conversation. Didn't they announce he's coming back next year already? Yes, they did, but they could always change their mind, Texter. They can always change their mind. If they got embarrassed by Ole Miss, they could always change their mind. No, but Dabo Swinney, Graham Neff's not making that decision anytime soon. He's not going to do that until he's absolutely forced to do it.
All right, let's go from Clemson. Let's hit 85 and then
26
here on the 26 and head toward Columbia, South Carolina.
Yep.
Shane Beamer, Diesel, in my opinion, is 0 of 10.
That blows me away because preseason we were talking about him being up there about a 7 or 8.
I know, but he's 0.
Yeah.
0. Convince me otherwise.
I mean, at this point, honestly, it would be a silly move. But what if Ray Tanner, as his last parting shot, gave Shane Beamer like a 10-year contract?
Great.
Which is essentially a lifetime contract in college football, right?
Yeah.
Give him a 10-year deal. Look, he's sitting on Antarctica right now.
He is.
His buns are getting frostbite right now. Shane Beamer's not going anywhere. It doesn't matter what happens this weekend. It doesn't matter what happens against Clemson. You're getting wins in the SEC, and you're looking good doing it. And you've got the quarterback of the future on the roster right now. He's in great shape.
So you say 0 as well? No, pushback there. Okay, we're both in agreement. Tolos, if you agree or disagree with Diesel and I, let us know. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Texter says, as a Gamecock fan, I think it's going to come down to 1 or 2 possessions. If USC blows Clemson out, I'll sit back with the popcorn and watch Michael in Simpsonville. It's going to be fun. We're going to listen. I cannot wait for Monday and Tuesday of next week as we start, because we're going to be off some time for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But as we start getting close to that rivalry, that game, I can't wait.
Wouldn't it suck if that game was the Saturday? Never mind. Forget what I said.
Forget what he said. So you also go 0 on Shane.
0.
Mike McCarthy and Big D. We talked to Brian Baldinger about this earlier. And Diesel, I told you on the show, I don't think Mike McCarthy's the problem, but he will be the problem in Jerry Jones's eyes. And he's probably at a 9 of 10 in my eyes. He should be at like a 5 because I don't think this falls solely on Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy is wearing gasoline underwear, and Jerry Jones is holding the match. Yep. He's toast. He's absolutely gone 10 out of 10. He's the scapegoat for this. Jerry's always looking for a scapegoat. He's always looking for somebody else to blame other than himself. If you would just hire a GM and get the F out of the way, Jerry, you might actually see some improvement. You be the owner. You book the events. You book the fake boxing matches at your stadium. Go be a promoter. Quit trying to make football decisions. You don't know what the hell you're doing.
Father Time will have to take care of that. Father, I hate to be that way. But I'm serious.
The casket's the only thing that's going to save you now?
It might be. Let's keep it in the National Football League, Diesel. Man, this one's tough. I tell you what, Baldy also touched on this. You asked the question about Trevor Lawrence. On this welfare check, we're checking on Doug Peterson. Is he home? Is he gone? How hot's his seat? Diesel, his seat's got to be hot. Baldy said they're not well coached.
He's also at a 10. It blows me away that they were able to beat a decent team in the Colts, to be honest with you. I mean, the Patriots are in flux. They've got a rookie quarterback, right? But they've had 2 4-game losing streaks in the same season in Jacksonville. It's pathetic. And it's not like they're even competitive in very many of these games. They got blown out by the Bills, the Bears,
Lions,
and the Lions. Mm-hmm. So they've been absolutely trounced 3 times this year.
No, I'm with you. I think you're dead on. 10 of 10. I think he's got to go. I messed up big time on Sunday. And I mean big time. Diesel, I had a teaser, a 4-way teaser, which the lines on a teaser are juiced way in favor of the better, right? So if the spread's normally 14 in favor of Detroit on a teaser, a four-way teaser, my teaser, it was like 26.5. My fourth leg on the teaser, for whatever dumb reason, I picked Jacksonville plus 26.5. I thought to myself, Jacksonville's covered the spread 4 times this season. They're 4-1 against the spread. There's no way Jacksonville will lose to Detroit by more than 26.5. They got demolished. Lost by like 35 plus. Doug Peterson absolutely has to go. He should be fired mid-season. What are you waiting on? Go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off for this guy. His exact words, Brian Baldinger's exact words were, Jacksonville's not a well-coached football team. And if Brian Baldinger says that, I believe him. This guy really does a good job. He knows ball, right? I think he's got to go. I think you have to rip the Band-Aid off. Also in the National Football League, Diesel, to Chicago we go. The number 1 draft pick, Caleb Williams, not working out quite as we thought. You are very pleased on that. I know you are.
Yeah.
Matt Eberflus, what do you do there? They are Matt Eberflus has come out lately and said that he is considering benching Caleb Williams, and that's just to save his job. I don't know if Eberflus is safe. I don't know if Eberflus is coaching this team this time next year.
Eberflus, in my mind right now, is like a 10. No, like an 8. Mm-hmm. He's about an 8 out of 10. And the only move that he can play right now is benching his quarterback, giving him time, saying, you know what? We tried. We had some success early in the season. Things are clearly regressing a little bit. We're going to who even is their backup quarterback in Chicago? I don't have
Rob Brown, I believe.
Is that serious?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I was going to say Roy Hummers.
That could make sense. I don't even know. I don't even know who's the backup quarterback there.
That's how bad is that?
Yeah. Tyson, they got some guy named Tyson Bagent on the team.
Him.
Yeah, Tyson Bagent.
Tyson, yeah.
From Shepherd College.
Oh, Tyson from Shepherd. Yeah, that's right.
Mascot? The Germans.
Are you kidding me right now? I was about to leave. I was about to quit this radio. I was about to walk out on you if you really guessed that. Shepherd College. Where is that even at?
Shepherd College is in Shepherdstown.
Oh, okay.
West
Illinois.
Virginia.
Oh.
They're not far off.
Not far off.
They made a mistake by not being the Germans. That'd be great.
What are they really doing?
They're the Rams.
Okay. Gotcha.
They are the Shepherd Rams. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, Shepherd.
That kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they should be the Shepherd German Shepherds.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That'd be great.
Let's go back down to the collegiate level for the rest of these. We've made our trip to the National Football League, but it's time to take it real close to home, Diesel. Sean Clark, where's he at? How hot is Mr. Clark's seat?
Sean Clark is at a 7.5, bordering on an 8, because they're now 4-6 on the season. They got to win out to even get bowl eligible.
And they have JMU this week.
James Madison and Georgia Southern still to go.
Ugh.
So you got to play 2 rivalry games and win 2 rivalry games.
And that's not going to happen, is it?
To even get bowl eligible. No, that's not going to happen. JMU's really good. Georgia Southern is pretty good this year. You're going to drop at least one of those, probably both.
Yeah.
If he loses both, there's no way he's coming back. If with all the circumstances, and look, Sean Clark could have played the Hurricane Helene card there for a while, because he could have said, look, I took my team away from practice to do community service, and he did. He could have said, look, guys, this was more important than winning football games right now.
Yeah, and good on him.
Yeah, but the problem is you're still expected to win football games.
Sure.
The story should have been, we took the team away to hand out canned foods, but also we were still winning football games, even if we were just winning them. The defense sucks.
What if he won the last 2?
If he won the last 2, I think he stays.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I
think that's wrong. I think it's a wrong move. I think he's got to go.
Okay.
You can't just have a good old boy network in Boone.
I like it. I'm going to go 7 of 10 for Sean Clark. For Hugh Freeze, Diesel, I have been very hard on Mr. Freeze. I don't like Hugh Freeze. I really don't. I think he was a terrible hire.
You're a shyster, huh?
I think he is an 8 of 10. I'm telling you. I know a lot of people push back and say, well, he hadn't been there long enough. I don't care. He sucks.
He hadn't been there long enough, but he's been in the SEC before. He's had success in the SEC before. And he's had time. Look, his recruiting class is really good. I think for that reason alone, Cole, he's back
next year
for one more year, because if you don't, you lose that recruiting class that he has built up. And I think you win one of the last two against A&M and Alabama, especially if it's Alabama, but even if it's A&M, he's very much safe for another year at a 4. You lose both, he's higher up, more like a 6.
Yeah.
But I don't think 6 is strong enough to fire him, considering the recruiting class that you've got coming in. You got to give him an opportunity with his class.
No, I'm with you. I think it should be high. I don't know. Here's the problem. If you're irrelevant again in 2025, you've got issues. You've got major issues. You've definitely made the wrong hire.
If he were to start like 2-3 or 2-4 through the first half of 2025, I think he's gone midway through the season. I mean, that leash is extremely short.
No, I'm with you there. Also in the SEC, Diesel, old Sammy boy, Sam Pittman has had a pretty good season compared to what we thought he would, right?
5-5.
500 coach. Is that good enough to keep your job at Arkansas? I think we may be delaying the inevitable. I don't know if he's back next year.
I think he is.
You think so?
I think he is. I mean, look, they love him personality-wise. He fits down there. He's played a brutal schedule this year. Absolutely brutal. The problem is that loss to Oklahoma State in game number 2, which I'm still bent that I lost points in the Upset Picks Challenge.
What a good game
on that one. It was. I had a tough day that day.
Yeah.
Just so you know. But no, I mean, you can forgive losses to A&M and LSU and Ole Miss and Texas. The problem is, Cole, that 4 out of their 5 losses have been at home.
It's not good.
No, that's not a great way to sell tickets there in Arkansas. So I'm going to cop out and put them right there at a 5.
Okay. I'm going 6.
Okay.
So not far off. 2 more, then we'll run. Let's go to the West Coast, Diesel, to our buddy Lincoln Riley, who has underwhelmed in 2024. I came into the season saying we have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. They have not been good. They've been underwhelming, uninspiring.
Yeah, they haven't had a marquee win since week 1 over LSU.
And how – I know it was a good win then, but how good of a win was it really? And I know LSU's been up and down. Right now it doesn't look like a great win. I think that whoever is in charge of the firing Diesel at Southern Cal, I think they've got some tough decisions to make.
Well, they've got to do some soul searching and figure out what it is they are, what it is they want to be. Look, they are at 5-5 right now. They've lost a lot of games by a touchdown or less.
5-5?
A lot of games by a touchdown or less. They lost to Michigan by 3. They lost to Minnesota by 7. 3-point loss against Penn State. That would be moral victory, at least, for USC. They had a 1-point loss at Maryland, a 5-point loss at Washington. Lincoln Riley can probably save his job for another year by saying, guys, look how close we are.
I think he does save it for a year.
Yeah.
But
so,
Diesel,
here's
the problem. Who do you hire that has a bigger name than Lincoln Riley if you replace him?
Urban Meyer.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's not many. Lastly.
Well, the thing is, to this point, Cole, not a lot of big programs have moved on from head coaches. So there's not a whole lot of guys out there right now.
No, I get that.
And we don't know who this next crop is going to be coming out of offensive and defensive coordinator positions.
From the West Coast, let's go to the East Coast, to Tallahassee, Florida. Is Mike Norvell safe despite the horrendous season they've had?
He shouldn't be.
No, he shouldn't.
He should be at a 9. He should be at a 9 because look, I know they had a great season last year, and they got derailed by what happened. They got railroaded also by what happened at the end of the year. But you can't just roll over and show your belly to the college football world the way Florida State has done this
They've shown their belly. I mean, they've shown it, every bit of it. They're horrible.
They have lost. I'm trying to count here. I got to use two hands to count this.
Take your shoes off.
6 straight games. That's
so bad.
After a 3-game losing streak to start the season.
That is so bad.
Can I think about this? They could go from, what was that, 12-1 last year, 11-1 to 1-11.
That's
the good news is for them, they've got Charleston Southern this weekend.
Oh, so they're going to win.
Charleston Southern, just out of curiosity.
I'm going to guess 3 wins.
1 win.
Oh,
they've got a combined record of 2-19.
Ooh.
These two teams. Honestly, if there was a spread on this one, I might bet the over on Charleston Southern. Because come on. And then they're gonna get smoked by Florida at the end of the season.
That's so bad.
Next week.
But it's a lot of fun, man. I love the welfare check.
It's always a good time. When we come back, Cole, some of the dirtiest words that I can think of in college football, they're not 4-letter words, starts with M, B, and G.
Whoa.
But now that mentality is finding its way into rivalry weekend. And I got a bone to pick with a Clemson insider author next. Tolos, 4:00 tomorrow. We are looking for your upset picks for week number 12 of the college football season. Coming down to the wire, my friends. And we got a traffic jam at the very top of the leaderboard. Could there be some separation this weekend? Well, let's find out. Need your picks tomorrow at 4:00. McCall, I was reading an article earlier today posted on the Clemson Insider. And you know that we have so many great guests that come on the show.
Yeah.
David Hood, Grayson Mann. We have so many great guests from the Clemson Insider that come on the show with us.
Well, David and Grayson are with Tiger now.
Oh, said that wrong. Excuse me.
We have had Will and Jason, though.
Yeah, Will. That's right. God, I got that wrong. So I am talking about an article here from Jason Priester that I saw earlier today, in which he uses the words meaningless rivalry game to discuss Clemson and South Carolina. Meaningless rivalry game to discuss Clemson and South Carolina. Here's what he said, quote,
okay.
Some rivalry games played the week before conference championship games have less on the line. Maybe nothing other than pride. He laid out a scenario where Miami could lose to Wake Forest, giving Clemson a guaranteed spot in the ACC title game that would make this Clemson-South Carolina game, in his words, quote, basically meaningless in the grand scheme of things. He talks about something that Dabo Swinney mentioned early in the year about sitting players against South Carolina to get them healthy for the ACC title game. And we know that Clemson is beat up in a lot of key positions on the field. So it would behoove Clemson to sit some of its stars for the South Carolina game to get ready if Miami loses one, right, and pushes them into the ACC championship game. And those I've never been more disappointed in anyone who I respect. I respect his work, Cole. I mean, how is that where we are in college football, that we have let this little media earworm crawl inside of all of our heads? Remember, it was 8 years ago, 9 years ago, that they started talking about meaningless bowl games.
Sure.
And then we started to see star players sit out for bowl games and get ready for the NFL draft. And now we're talking about meaningless rivalry games. So now it's gone from a few bowl games are meaningless to all non-playoff games are meaningless to games that don't have a direct impact on your college football playoff future are meaningless.
So I guess
this hurts me.
No, I understand. I understand why it does. I guess you have to start with, how do you define meaningless, right? Because you and I both know that, and let's face it, Jason Priester, who we've had on the show, you said it, I respect his work too. Jason knows this game's not meaningless. He knows that. However, how do you define meaningless in terms of the rivalry being meaningful, or the game and the outcome being meaningful? I understand what Jason is getting at in terms of the outcome of the game, Diesel, being meaningful.
I think what he means is impactful. Impactful versus meaningful are two different things. They're similar words, but impactful is a different thing. I mean, look, you and I both know that this game means everything to fans.
Sure.
Even if one of the teams is, 3-9 at the time or 3-8 at the time.
Before,
and that has happened.
Yeah.
Right. And you've seen upsets in this game that have been talked about for years. South Carolina fans still hold up five fingers at Clemson fans that even in that run when Clemson was pretty good, they were, not beating the Gamecocks.
You don't think Jason Priester used those words just so
you think he trolled me?
Some radio station in Greenville would be talking about it.
You think Jason Priester trolled me?
No, I don't think that's the case. I'm just saying sometimes you write things to get clicks. It's happened. It's called clickbait.
No, but that is dangerous. And I'm not saying malicious in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Because that's not Jason's point. And I understand that. It's dangerous because it continues this concept of meaningless football games.
Mm-hmm.
And Cole, I can't subscribe to that in any way, shape, or form. And I don't care if it's a Tuesday night Maction game where you've got a combined 4 wins between the team. I would argue that this Charleston Southern Florida State game coming up on Saturday, where both teams have a combined 2 wins, has a tremendous amount of meaning for both of these teams. You know why? Because if Charleston Southern beats Florida State, Mike Norvell's ass is gone.
He's gone. Yeah.
You can't bring Mike Norvell back if with all that talent and 4- and 5-star guys on your team, you're losing to Charleston Southern.
Meaningful to who, right? Not meaningful to all. I think that's important. Because this game or a bowl game, and I'll tell you what I remember, this takes my mind back to this season, Diesel, in high school football before the point system came back. You had non-region games and you had region games. Those non-region games had zero impact on the postseason. There was no point system. Media members like myself called those non-region games meaningless. Even if it was a big game, those 6 games or 5 games that high school teams played before the region started there was no point system. There was no RPI like they're using this year. There was nothing. So those games had zero outcome or zero effect on the outcome of the region standings. I know the coaches and players didn't call those games meaningless, but we did.
Did they keep score in those non-region games?
They did.
Okay. Did coaches figure out roster moves and player personnel combinations, et cetera, by playing those non-region games?
I'm sure they did.
So then they have meaning. They have value.
They have meaning. Yes.
Like,
again,
we've done this in several areas with college football. We've decided that the pre-Christmas bowl games, the Scrubbing Bubbles Toilet Bowl, is meaningless because you've got 2 teams that are barely over 500 playing right now. And I think that it couldn't be far for a lot of players. This is their very last game playing football. The very last time a lot of them will ever strap on a uniform.
And again,
you telling me that doesn't have meaning?
Meaningful to who? Meaningful to some, not all. That's why I bring that up.
And that's the problem, Cole, is when you tell a freshman who's on that team that the last game of his freshman season is meaningless, he now starts to think, well, I'm playing for a meaningless program. I need to get out of here. I need to move. I need to transfer. I need to go. And so you start implanting that idea into players' heads that they are now playing meaningless games at a meaningless program for a meaningless coach that's not going to get them where they want to be. Then they hit the eject button mentally or physically.
Can you reread the quote where he used that word just so I can refresh it in my head? Do you still have it?
He said, some rivalry games played the week before conference championship games have less on the line, maybe nothing other than pride. I asked the question, and I'm going to get back to his quote here in just a second. When has pride become meaningless? That is a big problem in our country today.
It does.
Is people don't have pride in anything.
Yeah. I'm with you.
People will go out to Walmart at 10 o'clock at night dressed like a flipping slob because they have no pride in their own personal appearance.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
So he said that, and this is not a quote here. I don't have the exact quote in front of me.
I wore Crocs to Walmart the other day. Okay.
He said that he laid out the scenario where Miami could lose to Wake Forest, giving Clemson a guaranteed spot in the ACC title game, in which case what happens against South Carolina in terms of playoff implications is, quote, basically meaningless in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, so in terms of playoff implications.
But that's the problem, Cole, is that we have now taught everyone to filter everything, every game, every matchup, everything, to look at it through the filter of will this or won't this get you into the college football playoff?
Well, that's the end goal.
So okay. So here's a good example here. Are you telling me that the Clemson South Carolina game, what he's basically saying is that game is meaningless for Clemson because if they If they win or lose, they would have a guaranteed spot in the ACC championship game.
If Miami were to lose one.
Miami were to lose one, right?
Correct, yeah.
So are you telling me that game is also meaningless to South Carolina fans and players who are a program on the rise, who in all likelihood are not in any shape or form legitimate playoff contention this year, but could very much use that as a springboard to lead into next season?
No, I'm not.
Exactly.
But I'm saying in terms of just the playoff outcome itself, I think you can say it's meaningful to the fans, but it's meaningless to the playoff outcome. Is that fair? It's meaningful to the fans, but it's meaningless when it comes to what's actually going to happen on the field. In the playoffs, rather.
Well, again, I don't look at everything through the playoff lens. I don't believe that everything has to have do or die playoff implications to find value. And it has worked its way into our conversations around NIL and everything that players got pre-NIL from the universities. That would be room and board, education, food, medical care, the best physical training they could possibly hope for. And all of that has been assigned a meaningless value because it doesn't have cash value. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the same conversation. Meaning these games individually in a bubble have meaningless value because they don't have playoff value.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a dangerous line to walk. However,
you've seen it grow and grow and grow and become a bigger problem. Yeah. And now this cancer is spreading into more areas of college football. Come on, are you telling me that 10 years ago, anyone ever would have said that this Clemson and South Carolina rivalry game is meaningless?
And to be fair, I don't think he means that.
I know.
I don't think he does.
I know. But when you start compartmentalizing it and you start saying the words anyway,
it's tricky.
That's when people lose the ability, eventually will lose the ability to compartmentalize themselves.
Yeah, I'm with you. Real quick, before we run to a break, let's see what Tom has to say. He wants to weigh in on the conversation. Tom in Somerville, what's up, man?
Did I just hear Diesel say Auburn was going to beat A&M or Alabama? Did I hear that right?
I think they could. I think those are my words.
I didn't say
will. I said they could take one of those two, and if they did, Hugh Freeze's job is safe for another year.
45 minutes later,
okay.
Tom.
Yeah, I was just curious there.
Do we have a 45-minute delay to Somerville?
Does it take that long to get those radio waves down there?
I've been listening on that
is it a hand crank radio?
That Audacity or whatever it's called.
The free Audacy app available right now on your Apple Store or Google Play Store.
Yeah, my bad, guys. I've been running around and taking phone calls, so it's probably been delayed.
It's delayed.
I wanted to make sure I heard Diesel right. But, Cole, I don't know why you don't like Hugh Freeze. I mean, he's had a struggle at Auburn, but he's a good guy.
I don't care about good guys. I want to win games. Good guys don't win football games, Tom.
He'll win some games. I know one team he would not beat, and that's the Gamecocks. But anyway, y'all were talking about it earlier, and I mean, the spreads on these games this weekend are just outrageous. It just drives me crazy that we're, 2 weeks into 2 weeks before the regular season's over, and we've got 40, 45-point spreads. I wish that we would have, better games this week, but that's always been a debate. But the Gamecocks are going to kill Wofford. Clemson's going to get beat by the Citadel. Go Gamecocks. I'll talk to y'all on Friday.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
844 fan phone. Tom's the best. We have some really good callers. We really do. I mean, absolutely the best. Michael in Simpsonville says, bring back the scrubbing bubble spray. Spray and walk away.
They clean the bowls so you don't have teeth.
Texter says, SEC is frauds in this matter. All right, we've got to run. We're late to a break. But on the other side, I want to ask, what happened? Why didn't those on the outside looking in make it to the inside looking out. What do I mean? That's next. We're going to get back into the playoff conversation of who we think's going to be in at 6:20. But Diesel, to look at the flip side of the coin, last week's college football playoff rankings had Boise State at 13, SMU at 14, A&M at 15, Kansas State 16, Colorado at 17, and Washington State at 18. For those, including Clemson, who last week was 20, will probably move up a few spots tonight. What went wrong for them? I also wrote down LSU because LSU is an interesting team. You could even throw Ole Miss into the conversation. Ole Miss, it's not a lock that they're going to be in, right? They don't know for sure that they'll be there. You could throw them into that conversation. But when it's all said and done, when this playoff, the final rankings come out, Diesel. I think one of the most compelling storylines is now that we've seen the first season of the expanded playoffs, what are the rules now? What does that mean? What do you have to do to get there? We don't know because it's never happened. After the final rankings come out, guess what? We will have a set of rules, something that set a precedent of what you have to do to make it in that 13, 14, 15, 16 didn't do. And hopefully those rules and guidelines stay consistent year after year. But I think that there are going to be several teams that are kicking themselves. And Clemson may be one of them that's on the outside looking in when it's all said and done.
Well, we talked about this end of season break essentially before the rivalry game. Both Clemson and South Carolina are both doing it. A lot of schools do. The SEC is big on doing this as well. We know what it's for.
Yeah.
It's not to help out the budgets of Citadel. It's not to help out the Wofford budget. It's to rest your guys so that you can be healthy as you can be for your rivalry game. And I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. This has kind of always been the truth, Cole, but the ACC is finding out that their conference schedule is not getting any better.
No. Heck no.
Sorry, Clemson, Wake Forest and Syracuse and Virginia Tech and schools like that are not doing you any favors.
But
you need to schedule tougher out of conference.
Yeah.
You need to get rid of that late season game. Sorry, you're going to have to play an ACC game that last weekend.
So you
before
think that'll
South Carolina.
help teams like on the bubble?
I think it will.
Okay.
I think it will.
Yeah.
Because look, you've got essentially a nothing sum of a data point in the last 2 weeks of the season.
I wonder, Diesel, though, if it would change when those games are. Like, we talked a lot about Georgia being out of the gate. Didn't really help Clemson. I think we even had one of the media members say they should have flipped it and played App State first, right? And then Georgia second. I wonder if after it's all said and done this season, coaches will look at the sample, the data, and say, okay, it's better for us to play that out-of-conference game in November. Maybe you see Clemson play Georgia, South Carolina back-to-back. I don't think that'll happen, but I just wonder if there's more to be said about what have you done for me lately than all the way back in August.
Well, I mean, those weak opponents are supposed to be confidence builders, like we were talking about with the high school non-region games. They're the ones that are supposed to help you really evaluate personnel once you're in game situations.
Yeah.
It also forces you to essentially get all your homework done early in the regular season.
Sure.
To make sure that you've got everything done before you go into rivalry weekend and go into potential conference championship games. I mean, think about this for a minute. To use the analogy of a high schooler, you think you got all your homework done. You came home on Friday, you think you got all your homework done. And then you find out late on Sunday night, 10 o'clock, oh, crap. I got this 3-page paper I'm supposed to write, and it's due at first period Monday morning. Like you just completely forgot about it. That's the situation that Clemson is in. Even if they had not lost to Louisville, you're in a position where you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball because you're not ready, or you don't have that data point at the end to save your ass if you weren't completely ready.
It's true. Texter says you have to do it. For years, South Carolina played a Tennessee or equivalent before playing Clemson, which I think is interesting. Maybe you do. I mean, can you imagine if Clemson had Georgia and South Carolina back-to-back this week? Ooh. That would be spicy. I mean, spicy. I mean, I don't know if
it's as good as it gets.
I don't know if it turned out well, Diesel, but it'd be spicy.
I mean, at least play North Carolina or NC's. Do what they were doing in the division play a couple of years ago in the ACC.
Yeah.
Play another ACC opponent as an out-of-conference game. You know, find somebody who's not on your schedule this year and just schedule them. So at least you got an FBS power opponent on your schedule. I think that's what they should do. When we come back, Cole, we had a fascinating conversation earlier with Brian Baldinger, Audacy NFL insider. He is an analyst for about half a dozen networks. We'll get back to that conversation for you next on the Fan Upstate. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on a beautiful rainy day here in upstate of South Carolina. Going to the phone lines right now, joined by Audacy NFL insider Brian Baldinger, host of the Best of Football Show podcast. Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo Game Day, be delicious. Brian, first time we've ever had you on the show. We appreciate your time joining us today. I don't know how much time you spend breaking down mediocre to bad football players, but if you're Dave Canales and we are here in Carolina Panthers territory, what do you really want to do with Bryce Young going forward? Yeah, he's won 2 straight games. He hasn't impressed really ever as a Carolina Panther. Do you want to move on from him, get what you can get, or try to plan to park a former number 1 draft pick as your backup QB?
I don't know what you could get for Bryce at this stage, honestly. I don't know how far that stock from the number 1 pick and what the Bears got for it. I don't think you're going to get much. If you're Dave Canales, you're trying to win every single game possible. You're just trying to build some kind of a winning culture. Doesn't matter when it starts. It could be the second half of the season. They've run the ball very well most of the season. Chuba Hubbard has been excellent. Robert Hunt's been excellent. They found themselves a nice little center in the middle there. Has been playing pretty good. Jatavian, you just look at some of these guys and you just keep trying to develop. You develop the culture. You develop winning. If it's with Bryce, great. And if it's with Bryce to trade Bryce, great. But you're trying to win every single game and trying to maximize whatever it is that he's good at right now, and trying to see if he can actually fit into the future. I mean, it's not a great sample of what he's done so far, but they have to decide. It's a big decision. Is this the guy that we're going to stay with, or do we have to move on?
Brian, I love your response. I love your answer because it contradicts what I said in the very last segment. Listen, you played the game. You know it. I didn't. I don't anywhere close remotely to you. But I said the Carolina Panthers, every game they win, it actually hurts them because their draft, where they're going to pick next season, next 2025, next April rather, is just going to continue to fall and fall. Winning does nothing in terms of getting the best player overall. However, to your point, you make the argument of building a winning culture as a GM, though, for Dan Morgan's standpoint. How do you balance that?
You don't. There is no balance. You win. I mean, what you're saying, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But Bryce Young was the number 1 pick. Whoopie-doo. What'd that get you?
You're right.
Bo Nix was the last quarterback taken in the first round this year. Look what that kid is doing. It's about player development. And so you can find great players in every round. If I'm Carolina, honestly, the culture is way more important than a high draft pick. It just is.
Gotcha.
I don't know if there's Joe Burrow out there. I really don't. I mean, I haven't studied really the college, quarterbacks or anything else coming out at this point, just into the NFL. But my gut feeling is there's no Joe Burrow out there. And so with that said, look, Jadeveon Clowney was the first player taken in this draft out of South Carolina. I love Jadeveon. He's never had 10 sacks in his life in a season. Been a good player. He's the first pick of the draft. I mean, I could go find 10 other players in that first round that were far better decisions or players over that course of time than Jadeveon. So picking high doesn't guarantee you anything. We've seen Zach Wilson, all these other guys just bomb out and fail. So it's about player development. It's about culture. It's about putting a winning feeling and forgetting about the first half of the season, trying to turn it around the way the Saints are right now. The way some of these other teams are coming on.
Find him on Twitter at Baldy NFL, known for his Baldy breakdowns. What's it like inside of a locker room, specifically asking here about the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a good football team? They're only a 1-loss football team on this season, but they've had a tendency, I think, this year to play up to better competition and play down to lower competition. What's it like inside of a locker room, and what kind of a feeling does it create when you're not out there essentially handling serve against the bad teams, even if you're winning?
Well, I mean, this team has won 3 Super Bowls. The core of the team has won 3. I mean, to me, just the fact that they can go out to Buffalo in that atmosphere and play as well as they did, knowing that whether they win or lose, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, it's all about what they do in January and February to that team. And so you're just going to have some days where you're just going to be a little bit off. You're just not going to be as good as you need to be. But that quarterback and that coach and that defensive coordinator, Like, all they think about is winning. Everything, every day. So the mindset doesn't change. They were pissed when they lost to Buffalo. That was not a fun ride home for them, even at 9-1. It wasn't a good ride home. So they'll refocus them, get them back. But they got the best culture in the NFL. They got the best coach and the best quarterback. Losing the game is only going to make them just more focused on the next opponent.
Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. Joined by Brian Baldinger. What do you do in Big D, Brian? Obviously, they're in a tough situation after last night, and that game really not competitive from the very beginning on a play that got called back. Jerry Jones, the past 3 seasons, not used to this. Usually their disappointment comes in the postseason. You know, there are a lot of Cowboy fans everywhere, including right here in our listening audience in the upstate. It seems as if this franchise that was just winning back-to-back 12-win seasons is going in a tailspin, and you saw that firsthand last night.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was critical of the Cowboys, and I like Jerry Jones, and I like Mike. I like the head coach. I mean, I like a lot of the guys in that team, that organization. I played there. But I said back when the Eagles were loading up in free agency with Saquon and Zach Bond, they were bringing all kinds of guys in. I was like, what are the Cowboys doing? They signed a long snapper, and a backup linebacker. They didn't participate because they thought the roster was good enough, and it's clearly not good enough. And so that's the message. I mean, there's no coach that could coach that team. Maybe Bill Parcells might be able to squeeze a few more wins out because he was just magical even when he went to Dallas. But I don't know many guys that could go down there and make that roster work for you right now. It needs a lot of work. They got some young linemen that have to develop. I don't know what they're going to do with the quarterback at this point. He's got to get, he needs a contract. They got to sign Micah Parsons. But other than that, they have to upgrade this roster. They have to get with understanding the salary cap and how you kind of play with the funny numbers to make sure you can get guys all in the way the Eagles do, the 49ers do, the good teams in this league do. They got to figure some things out. And last time was a good wake-up call for everybody in that organization that the roster is not good enough right now, regardless of who the coach is.
Brian Baldinger joining us here on the Fan Upstate. He is an analyst for NFL Network, Fox Sports, Compass Media Networks. He's an Audacy NFL insider and Sky Sports UK analyst. How is breaking down the game for the UK audience different than breaking it down for the American audience who's more familiar with the game?
You'll love this, and it's why it's so fun. When America, we take the games live in London. I do the playoff games for them. I've done a couple Super Bowls for them. When the Americans broadcast, Fox, CBS, whatever, goes to commercial, we come to the studio. They don't break for commercials. So we get to analyze all game long in real time. So if Joe Mixon runs up the middle for a 45-yard touchdown on the 6th play of the game, and we go to commercial in the UK, we're breaking that run down. And we're showing, just what the blocking scheme was and, what Drew Scruggs did on the left guard position to get Joe Mixon free. So it's awesome doing stuff for Sky.
It sounds like it. It absolutely sounds like it. Going off of a little bit of a follow-up on the Baldy breakdowns, which I love. Everybody loves them. In your mind, since you started, which Baldy breakdown has really went the most viral, maybe that you didn't expect to go viral, rather? Which one blew up on you in your recent memory?
I would say, Snoop Dogg just hit me up today. Now, not everybody gets followed by Snoop Dogg. He's got 84 million followers. So, he's a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I just did something, at this. I announced the game on Sunday for national radio. So I did something outside the stadium with those Steeler fans and terrible towels coming in, and he loved it. But I did one last year on the 49ers' last play in overtime where they really kind of screwed up the protection, and they could have had a chance to win the game. And I showed how Brandon Ayuk was wide open. If they didn't screw up the protection, they'd probably win that Super Bowl. I think that one was somewhere around 5 or 6 million, views on that particular play. That was probably the biggest one I've had.
Who are your nominations, Baldy, for your unsung heroes this season? Guys that maybe are just emerging as stars in the NFL. Maybe some guys that don't really get their name called on plays very often, who are really, really impressing you through your Baldy breakdowns.
They got a second-year middle linebacker for the Chargers. They're the number one defense in football. They've given up the fewest points so far. But Deion Henley out of Washington State, I think he was a third-round pick. Didn't play much last year. That kid leads that team in tackles by like over 40 more tackles than the second player. Like Deion Henley is an unbelievable player. He never comes off the field. He's an unbelievable player that probably people don't know about. He wears number 0. He's really something else. If you look at this kid that's starting at left tackle for the Colts, they just won a big game against the Jets on Sunday. Matt Gonsalves from Pitt. He's a Long Island kid. He went into New York the other day. He pitched a no-hitter against Will McDonald and Quinnen Williams. He played really good. He's only his second NFL start, but he looked like he'd been out there a long time. Gosh, I could go around the league and just keep going, with certain players that just they just catch your DJ. Like this kid, Zach Bond in Philadelphia. He never played off the ball inside linebacker in New Orleans for 4 years. He's got more tackles already through 11 games than he had in 4 years combined in New Orleans. But they saw something inside of him that said he could be an off the ball inside linebacker. And what's not surprising is he went to Wisconsin. And every single Wisconsin linebacker that plays in the NFL, Leo Chenal, TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, Andrew Van Ginkel. You go through the list of all these guys, TJ Edwards, they're all great players.
Baldy, you mentioned the Chargers just a second ago. To follow up on that, do you credit where they are now more to what they've been building in the last few years or just simply the Harbaugh effect?
No, it's simply the Harbaugh effect.
Wow.
They have a lot of the same players. Like that defense was awful to watch. Between the missed tackles and the miscommunication and the breakdowns in the secondary, week in, week out, it was abysmal. They have a foundation. They have a toughness to this team. They start 2 rookie 5th-round cornerbacks. You'd never know it. Like they're just well coached. They're disciplined. The quarterback is playing out of his mind. They're going to the postseason, and they're going to be a tough out in the postseason. And it's all Jim Harbaugh. This weekend, of course, is the Harbaugh Bowl. So you'll be able to see it on national TV, just like we did, years ago when it was Baltimore, San Francisco in the Super Bowl.
Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add some extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. Baldy, I want to ask you about 2 quarterbacks who are in similar situations, but also very different in some other respects. Who's more cooked in their individual situation, Trevor Lawrence or Aaron Rodgers?
Well, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he just is played like a 40-year-old quarterback. He's bouncing balls off the turf. He's missing receivers that are open that he's never missed before. He's in too big of a hurry to get rid of the ball. He doesn't want to get hit again. I mean, it's just time. Trevor Lawrence, I think there's still a lot of hope. He's still very young. He's got a lot of experience. He's not playing well, but they're not a well-coached team. There's going to be changes there in Jacksonville. You see some of these guys. I mean, I'm not going to compare him to Justin Herbert, but look at what Justin Herbert's doing this year, and look at him what he did in the past. He was just a big, talented kid before, and now he's literally jumping out of his shell. And so I feel like there's hope for Trevor Lawrence if they can put a line together, they get the right staff in there, the right offense. I feel like Trevor is a very serious student of the game, wants to be good, works to be good. It's just not working for him right now with this regime.
Baldy, before we let you run, last question for you. Do you think, in your opinion, is there any concern on the NFL's part with the streaming of what's coming up next month in terms of the numbers? Because we saw Friday night that Netflix obviously had some issues with the numbers they had on the Paul Tyson fight. Any, in your mind, any worry in the sense of Roger Goodell and what's to come on Netflix?
I'm not sure. I've read a few things about Saturday night's fight, so I'm not really sure what to make of it. I know this. Netflix paid the NFL $150 million to broadcast those 2 games on Christmas. They couldn't really turn it down. I don't know if there's going to be issues or not at this point. It's kind of beyond maybe Elon Musk can go figure it out if they need somebody to go fix it. I don't know. He seems to be able to fix a lot of things. But I'm just going to enjoy football on Christmas for the first time in a long time.
Baldy, great stuff as always, man. We really appreciate you hopping on with us, and we enjoyed it, and we'll do it again soon.
Let's do it, guys. You bet. Anytime. Take care.
You too, man. Brian Baldinger, fantastic stuff there. Want to remind you that NFL insider Brian Baldinger, host of the Best Football Show podcast, Insider Calls brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo game day be delicious. Diesel, really good stuff, especially on the Bryce Young front with Dave Canales. That was really the first question you asked him, and I just loved. Yeah, it did, and that's why I kind of wanted to not go at him a little bit, but like challenge him, because I do respect what he says. He played the game. I didn't, and you and I a segment or an hour ago were just having the conversation of what to do, and Brian absolutely says you've got to win now, regardless. Yeah. Don't worry about – and I know other analysts out there may agree or disagree, but I thought that was really, really fascinating.
Well, if you combine that with something Mark Schlereth told us, which was build the team from the inside out, you know that if you're the Carolina Panthers and you got 3 wins right now, you pick up maybe 1 or 2 more down the stretch, you're not going to be in contention for a number 1 overall quarterback.
No.
You're not going to be in contention for a top 5 pick. But you definitely will be in contention to get great offensive linemen, to get great defensive linemen. And that's how you build a team from the inside out. And look, we can look back at teams that perennially suck and spent decades sucking, i.e. the Cleveland Browns, who tried and tried and tried again and again and again and again with the number 1 overall picks of going out and fixing it the fast way with a quarterback. And even if you have a good quarterback, you got nothing around him, he's going to flame out in a couple of years anyway. So it seems, building a culture is gigantic in the NFL. Dave Canales is a super positive guy, and it's really hard to build a culture when you're constantly churning players because you maybe sat some guys because you didn't want to get them hurt or you wanted to get film on somebody else. And it creates this culture of we're trying to suck.
It does. I'll tell you what, regardless of the philosophy, going back to what Mark Schlereth said, you do have to stockpile draft picks, whether those be early in the draft or later. To Brian Baldinger's point, I understand how valuable, Diesel, a winning culture is because, and I know we hear this a lot, but especially in the NFL, Diesel, winning's hard. It is hard to win games in the NFL. It just is. If you ask those who have coached and those who have played, man, it's hard to win NFL football games. And he touched on it. They need the culture in Charlotte. They need the winning recipe, the winning formula, the DNA. He also talked about that same DNA when you asked him the Chiefs question, right? They don't care really what happens in the regular season as much as they do in January. That DNA takes time. That's the DNA they're trying to build. But I love his answer when I asked him about how do you weigh it. He said, you don't weigh it. You don't try to get a higher draft pick because he brought up guys – including Bo Nix, that haven't panned out, that were taken early in the draft. And I think that just goes to show how tough of a job Dan Morgan has. I really do, man. It's tough.
Yeah. I mean, digging out of a big hole. I mean, you're digging out of a hole with a thimble is basically where the Carolina Panthers are right now.
And that thing breaks. It breaks
it's
a lot.
It's a leaky thimble.
It does. It really is. But really appreciate Brian Baldinger. Great stuff. Give him a Diesel, we did some poor planning on our part. We did not correlate or coordinate, rather, with the College Football Playoff Committee. You said it a couple of weeks ago. It sure would be nice if they did it at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock, so we don't have to wait. Be great if we could react to it for an entire hour.
Just do it live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We'll do it live.
Let's do it. However, we have to guess. We have to give our best estimation on what's going to happen tonight in the college football playoff. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryce, and we have our high school player of the week, Michael Skinner, coming up at 6:42. So, Tolo, stay tuned for that. We have our high school player of the week every Tuesday. But we did this in the very first segment, Diesel, and let's get back into it. Who do you and I think is going to be where tonight when it comes to the college football playoff? We have some disagreement at number one. You think tonight, when the committee reveals the number one team in all of the land, it's going to be
Ohio State Buckeyes.
Ohio State.
Yeah, because look, I understand that Oregon beat Ohio State in the head-to-head, but if we are simplifying all of it down to one game, not total body of work, I think that I think that we're doing the wrong things here. Okay, so Oregon beat Ohio State on a technicality that has now since been legislated out of the game. Think about that for a second. The technicality has been legislated out of the game.
Yeah.
And we're going to hold that against Ohio State? I don't think so.
But Oregon hadn't lost.
Oregon hadn't lost.
You can't knock them down.
But they also struggled last week against a 5-win Wisconsin. So they look bad. Offensively and defensively, they look bad in that game. And Ohio State has looked, in my mind, better than Oregon over the past few weeks. And look, I'm comfortable making this move right now because we still have several college football playoff rankings to come out before the end of the season.
Yeah, we do.
So it's not the end of the world. If they do something, and it's honestly, to me, it seems like something they would do to shake things up, if only for a week, to get people talking. I mean, come on.
But then how could they reverse it, though?
Literally just reverse it.
Yeah, but then what would the precedent be of saying, okay, now we're going to take Ohio State?
Oregon this week will play. They don't play this week at all.
And Ohio State has Indiana.
Ohio State is Indiana. So let's say Indiana plays Ohio State close. Let's say they keep it within a touchdown.
You drop them back?
Oh,
come on.
Yeah, because look, Oregon is going to have an opportunity in a week against Washington. Ohio State's going to be playing Michigan. Now you get to look at those two data points because Michigan's not much this year. Washington is not much this year either. So you get a better sense of how they're playing coming down the stretch. I don't like the idea of putting up a permanent wall because Oregon beat Ohio State on a late technicality, putting up a wall and saying there's nothing Ohio State can do to jump them. And there's nothing that Oregon can do to be pushed back or to be held back.
Yeah.
So,
but for me, Oregon has to lose. That's my thoughts. I think Oregon would have to lose to be jumped. I don't think there's any way Oregon's not won tonight. I'm telling you, I think it's 100%. I say that, and we'll play this audio back tonight. Ohio State will be one. It's happened before. Diesel, I have Texas at 3.
So do I.
Okay,
and they were number 3 last week, so there's no reason to move them.
No movement from Texas. We both have Penn State at 4. They were 4 last week. Indiana, same situation, 5 last week. No movement, right? No reason to move. Here's where it gets interesting, though. 3, 4, 5 we agree on. 6 through 12 is really interesting. BYU was 6. They lost to Kansas. BYU is going to fall. We'll get to that in a second. But you and I both have Notre Dame at 6. Is that a lock that Notre Dame's going to be 6 tonight?
It should be.
Okay.
It should be. Look, Notre Dame had their slip up. It's an embarrassing slip up, but since then they've been absolutely rolling teams, and they deserve to be here inside the top 10. And look, I mean, they just by virtue of the fact that the two teams ahead of them lost, they have to move up. Notre Dame was 8, and BYU at 6, and Tennessee at 7 both lost. So are you trying to tell me that Tennessee should move up a place after losing, and Notre Dame should fill the gap and move up to 7? No, that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. I think Notre Dame has painted Diesel the perfect illustration this season. We were talking about it a couple of segments ago of rules for the postseason, like what you have to do to make it, and those rules being set this year. I think Notre Dame has said, look, it's very simple, guys. You can have one bad blemish, and they had a bad loss.
Even if they had blown Northern Illinois out but gotten absolutely stomped by Texas A&M.
Right. But what I think they've shown the entire nation is you can only have a blemish. I said it yesterday.
Yeah.
You can't add an S on that and make it plural. If you do, that's where you start becoming a bubble team. Here's the deal. There's not a guarantee other than a conference championship that a 2-loss team gets in. So I think in that world, in the world we're living in now, you have to look at it and say, okay, if you have 1 loss, you don't have to be a conference champion. You can get in. But if you have 2, you have to be a conference champion. The margin of error is too thin for otherwise.
What really fascinates me about that Notre Dame conversation is that they're saying you can have a blemish.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't matter who it's to.
No, that's true. Well, Clemson had a blemish to Pitt in 2016 when they won the national championship.
So,
that was a bad loss.
Yeah, and Pitt at the time was not Pitt this year.
No.
Just imagine if this Clemson had run the table but lost to App State in week 2. You're telling me that Clemson would be a top 5 team or top 10 team.
Georgia the week. So, God, what a conversation that is. You're saying they beat Georgia. Oh, God, lose to App State.
And then run the table.
So
it doesn't matter.
I guess not.
And look, losing to Northern Illinois is a worse loss. Would have been a worse loss than losing to App State.
Sure.
Because
it's bad.
Northern Illinois, 10 years ago, had a great season, but that was 10 years ago.
That's interesting. Yeah, to your point, you only have to have you can have one, doesn't matter who it is, too. 7, Tennessee was 7 last week.
This is where it devolves for both of us.
That's right. It kind of goes into a tailspin here. I have Miami at 7. I'm not very confident in that, but I do have Miami there. A little bit of a wild card, Diesel. You have?
I have Alabama.
I have
Alabama at 7 because SEC bias is a thing, right? It is a thing. And Alabama was at 10. I had them moving up from 10 to 7. BYU and Tennessee, in my mind, both fall outside of the top 10. So at the very least, that moves Alabama up to number 8. And then Miami, after not playing and losing the week before, you telling me that Miami is better than Alabama?
No, because Alabama has played more bowl eligible teams than anybody else.
So for that reason, I got Alabama jumping all the way from 10 to 7, and that's big movement in this poll.
Now, the reason I have Miami 7 is, again, these predictions that you and I are doing are what we think is going to happen.
Will do.
That's right, what the committee will do. Not necessarily what we think should happen. I don't think Miami should be 7. Let me be very clear. I don't think they should be 7. I think they might be, though.
So you're saying they're going to move up 2 spots
by
virtue of playing nobody.
Yeah.
They
just because
the,
2 teams,
the fighting nobodies from BYE.
That's true. Okay, at 8, I have Georgia. You have?
Ole Miss.
Oh, God, that's interesting. See, I don't have Ole Miss in the top 10.
Really?
No. Ole Miss is, God. Okay, so I asked Smitty on Friday, Diesel. You were on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I asked Smitty. I said, Smitty, give me one team that's going to be using the Florida State war cry, not war chant, crying about missing the postseason at 13. Or the possibility, right? Smitty said Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is a 2-loss team.
Yeah.
That just demolished Georgia.
And he thinks they could be on the outside.
28-10.
I know.
28-10. And so, I've got Ole Miss at 8, and I've got the team they just beat at 9.
Georgia.
In Georgia.
Okay. I'm like, so I have Bama at 9, and then
I'm not confident. I'm not super confident in my 9 pick just because they just lost. So that one gives me a little iffiness right there. But I think quality-wise, Georgia is a top 10 team.
No, they are.
Even though they just lost.
They are 100%. BYU 10. You have Miami at 10.
Yeah.
I think BYU, this is weird to say, Diesel, but I think tonight when these rankings come out at 7, I think BYU is the most interesting storyline. I'm not kidding. They were 6 last week. They lost to an unranked Kansas. A bad loss. A bad loss. Do they fall completely out? Do they allow a Colorado to get in? Do they somehow, some way make a path for Clemson later on?
I think the committee is looking for any reason, and I understand BYU's new is an FBS or power team now in the Big 12, but they're brand new. I think they look for any excuse to helmet scout and say, well, yeah, but BYU. Of course, I don't disagree with that because you're brand new to this, right? Of course you're going to fall. You're not what we all thought you were. You're not a top 10 team. You're not a top 6 team.
No, I don't disagree with that. I really don't. I think you have to, if you're BYU, I think the odds are stacked against you from the very beginning, Diesel, because of the helmet sticker, to your point. It's just very interesting to see.
So, you know, we've spent a lot of time talking about the dominance of the SEC.
Yeah.
As of right now, Cole, we both have 4 out of the top 5 teams being Big 10 teams.
Isn't that crazy?
I know that we can talk depth all day
with
the SEC, and that conversation is very, very, very valid, and you're probably right there. But we've both got 4 out of the top 5 teams in the country being Big 10. And somehow, some way, that is an inferior conference.
No, I'm with you.
Make it make sense.
James Owen says, gotta disagree with you on a 2-loss team not making. I believe that South Carolina wins out if they win out and other games go their way. I'm predicting South Carolina will be your 12th seed. That's a big prediction, James Owens.
That would be huge for the season.
Huge. High school player of the week, Michael Skinner of Riverside, next.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson coming down the stretch here, last few minutes, 10 minutes or so on the show today. We go to the phone lines and talk to Michael Skinner of Riverside High School, our Wire to Wire Fan Upstate High School Player of the Week. 10 rushes for 127 yards last week, 4 touchdowns, 3 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 sack. He's a tight end. He's a running back. He plays on defense. Michael, number one, thanks for joining the show with us today. And in your mind, as you've now had several years in your high school program and you're set to go off to college, what's the biggest benefit of being a jack of all trades kind of player in a world where a lot of coaches really want players to specialize?
That's a great benefit on my end. It makes it easier for me to be recruited and easier for me to have different matchups, harder for different teams to game plan on me.
You know, Michael, I definitely look at it from the game plan aspect. To your point, man, I tell you what, you're exactly right. I mean, how do you game plan for a guy, to Diesel's point a second ago, that rushed for 127 yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack? What was it on Friday against Greenville, Michael, that allowed you to have so much success in your mind?
It kind of wasn't looking for me to play as much running back. And they kind of game plan different with one of our playmakers being out and someone else kind of filling that role. And so it was just kind of all over the place. And just having that chip on my shoulder where it could be my last game just pushed me to go hard every play. And it kind of left me unstoppable against the other team.
Michael, can you describe your running style? Are you a bruiser? Are you a side-to-side kind of guy? Do a little bit of everything, and how does that differ from, you said the other running back on your roster that was expected to start, you ended up getting the majority of the carries?
For sure, I could do both most definitely, but with our O-line side-to-side, much more better for us this season.
Michael, you're a very accomplished high school athlete. You've had a fantastic career, and you've had a fantastic season at Riverside. What players do you look up to as you've grown up and came up through the ranks? What players have you kind of tried to model your game after?
I'll say Debo Samuel and Travis Kelce.
Ooh, those are good ones.
Yeah. Michael, I know that you have recently committed to Kentucky. You had offers from South Carolina, West Virginia, a handful of really good Group of 5 programs in the area as well. What was it about Kentucky that really won you over?
My position coach, coaching staff, but most definitely my position coach. I love him a lot. Being so far from home, he really made it comfortable. Reminds me a lot of my dad, and just made it feel comfortable and like another home to me, just like nothing different from home.
That's awesome, man. That's a great feeling to have. Talk about Michael, and by the way, we're joined by Michael Skinner of Riverside, our Fan Upstate Player of the Week. Michael, talk about the experience for those out there listening who may have never been able to get to go through this. I mean, I didn't. Diesel didn't. To experience what you've experienced as a high school athlete with a lot of the attention that you've had and the interest from colleges, being able to come up through high school and experience and go on these trips to these different programs and stadiums, just talk about how cool that's been.
It was most definitely cool at first, just dreaming of playing college football and having family members go to college and WNBA and NFL. But kind of towards the end of my recruiting part, it got a little old, and I was just ready to come in.
What was the most maybe frustrating is not the right word, but the most tiresome part? Just the phone calls, the constant text messages. Did you have to get a new phone just for that, just to manage all these calls?
Well, the text messages, especially when you're trying to go to sleep, the calls kind of at the end, and then especially the games. Like if the games wasn't as interesting and got boring or blowouts, or then it was most definitely getting boring, especially if the whistles kept blowing, a lot of flags and things like that.
Especially those radio interviews, Michael. Those are the worst. You know what, man? I mean, all they do is bug you. I know, I'm just kidding with you. Hey, we appreciate you hopping on with us. A few more questions, though, from Diesel and I. Michael, you mentioned family that have also played. For those out there that don't know, can you fill us in on those family members and where and who they played for?
My aunt played for UConn, and she went to WNBA and played for Liberty. And then my cousin, Courtney Brown, went to Penn State and was the first round draft pick to Cleveland Browns.
Wow,
Whew,
that's a lot to live up to. That's a lot to live up to. What are conversations like at we got Thanksgiving coming up. What are the dinner table conversations like with those family members? I'm sure they're real supportive of your decision and obviously of your future as well. But are they putting pressure on you, or is it all just positive words?
No, they're all really positive. They say jokes here and there, but they really want to stay home, especially for the low country part of my family because it's down the street. South Carolina's right down the street, but they all just push me and thrive me and put in good words for me for the future.
Michael, this is the most important question you'll ever be asked. Diesel just mentioned Thanksgiving. If I came and saw Michael Skinner at Thanksgiving, what would be on Michael Skinner's plate and what would he leave off of his plate?
I don't like stuffing. I like mac and cheese, yams. What else? Collard greens.
There you go.
Rice and gravy, a nice turkey, and that'd be really it.
What's wrong with the stuffing, though?
Good lemonade. No, I just don't like it. I don't know
why. Are you going like a turkey breast slice, or are you going for that turkey leg?
No, I really like ham more than turkey.
Ooh, okay. That's
okay.
important.
Michael, you got a big game obviously coming up this weekend against Gaffney. Can you give us any preview? I don't want to give away too much because we know we have a lot of listeners up in Gaffney. We don't give away too much to them. But in your mind, what's the game plan and how are you going to be used? Will it be similar to the way you were used, kind of all over the place against Greenville?
Really, similar to be honest. Last game we got kept in the game by our defense, and offense played terrible. So I think this game, offense going to play extremely well, and defense going to play the same as they did last time, and it's going to be a much different game than what people expect.
We're talking to Michael Skinner, the Fan Upstate Player of the Week. You just mentioned it the first game when Diesel asked you about Friday. You guys played earlier in the season. It was a 1-touchdown loss for you guys to Gaffney. Michael, is there anything in that game that you can take away, like the first meeting, some tendencies that you saw Gaffney do, or some ways that they line up, or the way they execute plays? Is there anything you can take away from that game and use on Friday?
I mean, with me being, my passion, who I am, they obviously gonna triple team every time, two over top of me or three. So with that being said, last time, there's not really anything. Leave other players open and get them the ball.
Michael, can you take an opportunity here to shout out some of the coaching staff and even other players on your roster and team players that you've played with over the past couple of years as you're just about to wrap up your high school career? Hopefully you got a couple more weeks of this high school career, by the way, that have really made a big impact on you.
I'll say coaching staff first. I'll say Coach Rock improved, Coach Wright, and Coach Wilkes, our new OC, and players. A good bit of seniors. Z-Man, Zachariah. How about Zachariah? Z-Man, Zachariah, Lutz, Spencer Alley, our corner, and my other playmaker, Samad Edie, and O-line Roman, he's a senior. And so those all real seniors and one junior that makes a big impact on our team this whole year.
Michael, my last question for you, buddy. And by the way, we're talking to Michael Skinner, the Fan Upstate Player of the Week of Riverside. He had a big night for Riverside against Greenville last Friday. Michael, if you and I lined up against each other in NCAA 25, which team would you pick to beat me?
I'll probably say either Alabama or Texas.
Ooh. Now, who's that leave me with now?
I mean, you got Oregon.
Ohio State.
That'd be a good one too.
Colorado State.
There you go.
That is Mike Michael Skinner.
Or Georgia. You got Georgia, too.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
true.
Hard to forget about them.
Yeah, Michael Skinner, we appreciate your time. Riverside High School has a big game coming up Friday night against Gaffney. Go see him play. Hopefully not for the very last time as a Riverside Warrior, but we appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Michael.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a great young man, and man, he's got a big time future ahead of him. Going to be playing football in the SEC. Sorry, Gamecock fans, you're going to see him on the other side of the field. That's going to be a tough guy to bring down.
He's really good. He's a talented football player right here in the Upstate. A lot of fun to see Michael succeed, and best of luck to him Friday night against Gaffney. Tolos, we will see you tomorrow, a Wednesday edition of the show. We'll see you then.